UKLC is presented by Barclays and Curry's PC World.
Hello, welcome to the UKLC Finals. We are heading into our semi-finals today, but before we do, I have to give a shout out to our sponsors. We are brought to you by Barclays and presented by Curry's PC World. Veteran, you're on the desk with me. We are going to be going through the semi-finals and the finals tomorrow, and I have the ultimate 5-head analysis coming out from my boy Veteran. So we are going to be obviously working through the first semi-final today, which will be the Nvision versus MNM Academy one, and then later on we will have our second semi-final. I will actually bring up the standings first, though, because I want to talk a little bit about how we got here. I want to show you exactly what happened because, as you can see, this was an incredibly close competition, where the fact that we had 4 teams tied at 9 and 5, and just below that, 1 game separating Enclave and London from making it into that top 4 spot. Now, as you can see, these are actually sorted by the seeding coming out of that tiebreaker scenario. Nvision absolutely stomped it, 2-0. And that carries on from their win streak coming into those playoffs, and they take the first seed spot. Demise, who at the start of the season were looking down and out, came in at 2nd seed. Monster Rugby in at 3rd, and MNM unfortunately did not have the best time in playoffs, and they take that 4th seed spot, which has set up our 2 semi-finals today. And I can show you the bracket in just a moment because we can talk a little bit about the 2 of them. Nvision versus MNM, the first one that's coming up, and then following up that Demise versus Monster. These are both best of 3s, and they will both be finished today, where our grand finals will take place tomorrow and will decide our winners. The 2 teams that make it to the grand finals will go to the Telia Masters to compete for NLC spots. So if you win here today in a semi-final, you're going to have your shot at the big leagues of the NLC, which is obviously very important for these teams today. Well, I've done my bit, Veteran. I've done my spiel. All my housekeeping's out the way. Let's crack on with talking about these teams. And I know you've been doing a lot of VOD reviews, a lot of looking up, and particularly you were talking about Nvision. So let's start with Nvision.
Sure.
This team, throughout the entire split, seems like it's been very jungle focused. Alex has been kind of like the most consistent player. It's been very jungle mid orientated. When BB Muffin's having a great game, it feels like the team has a good game. But the first thing you said to me, you said this team is very formulaic. They do the same thing almost every game, and it's been working out for them as of late.
So I would less say that the team is formulaic overall. I'd much more say that they let their lanes play out with kind of minimal interaction outside of leans towards topside. But when they do that, they do that on very, very, very economical moments. So they're a lot more tightly focused on their economy share than most other teams are, where you are seeing the typical amateur, let's play heavily for skirmishes in early game, let's get everyone going everywhere and try to create as much chaos as possible. This is probably the least chaotic team we've seen, and I'm glad you brought up BB Muffin as well, because I think referring to them as jungle focused might be missing out on how well structured their laners actually are right now. And BB Muffin in particular, whenever you do see something happen, he's kind of like the special of this team in the sense that he will unlock himself and he will lean with his support, with his jungler at the very few instances where they're going to make a play, and it's never a flip play. It's always a 100% play whenever they do it, no matter which side they do it to. That's actually impressive in a way, to be honest. It does make for, I guess, one of the least entertaining teams you could watch, but it's actually very good to see a team that is very focused on getting like the little things right before they try to move on to the big things, rather than just create a scenario of chaos where they are in slightly more control than their opponents are. It's actually very refreshing to see. I actually have a lot of hope for them as I watch them today. And because their laners play so heavily for lane like this and don't demand so much for their jungler, that's what's allowed this more jungle-focused style, I guess, that we've seen here, that does allow for picks like the Karthus to come out, for heavy farming picks like the Olaf to come out, with a level of efficiency that you don't normally get to see from junglers, because normally they have to interact with their laners so much and keep responding to all these skirmishes and keep responding to all of these fights. So they're a very tight team. It's clearly a team of 5 individuals playing, but because they're also focused on playing very efficiently as 5 individuals, they end up working out to be an efficient team overall.
So the way that you kind of saying it is this: if we look at it less from a jungle perspective and looking at the fact that actually their lanes play so well in lane that honestly Alex can just sit there and farm. And obviously as a jungler, if you sit there and farm, you're going to get strong by the mid game and you're going to be looking like you're influential because you've just had the resources to do it, right? So that's kind of, I guess, the way that we look at them. If we were then to like turn the switch on this, because there was a point during the split where they did not look good. Nvision, honestly, if you look at their split as like all the games they played, it felt coin flip at times, right? It felt a little bit coin flip and it felt a bit draft dependent. Is there anything that you think is a weakness here for this team? Anything that you think MNM could go at? Because they've obviously looked very solid over the last sort of 6 games.
Well, definitely from MNM's perspective, I can see where they could start trying to target, because everything I just described for Nvision doesn't typically work out at an amateur level, because you have to have a lot of confidence in your laners being able to play really well later on with their economy. But if all the other teams are just creating chaos, they effectively take control of the game and force you to respond to them. And maybe now suddenly you can't play heavily for economy without having to trade in other areas. MNM, we've seen, especially if they play compositions that lean heavily into Aragon's Renekton on top side, they are fully willing to just take their jungle support, Dreampire, especially on his Nautilus, on his Thresh, on champions like this, all around the map and create as much chaos as possible. Make plays mid, make plays top, accelerate the game really fast. And if you're Nvision and you're trying to just chill there, trying to get good wave states for your laners, trying to farm up for mid to late game spikes, maybe go for the 1 or 2 really sure roams that you can do, and this team is just permanently making plays. They don't care that bot lane is bleeding out and is now half the CS of his opponent. That's a play style that could be very, very difficult for you if you're not playing absolutely perfectly. So I could see MNM, especially with their more heavy lean towards top side as later on they've gone in the split, exploiting the aspect of Nvision that what they're doing is actually a lot harder to execute in early phases of the game, and maybe trying to play heavily with tempo that they gain just from trying to make more plays in Nvision. Even if they're not going to be 100% plays, their plays that more often than not will work out, because at this level, everyone is still learning. Everyone can't respond perfectly and immediately. And if you just disrupt Nvision's otherwise very solid 5-lane state, now they have to adapt to what you're doing and they can't play their game anymore. And MNM is absolutely a team when Dreampire is playing for Aragon and Gaddanuka is playing for Aragon that they can do that. They've shown they can do that, and I think they can do that here.
So let's talk about it from MNM's side of it, because we're about 3 or 4 minutes away from draft now. What do MNM need to do? Because I think just given recent form, MNM and seeding, they come in as underdogs into this best of 3. I think you wouldn't have said that earlier in the split, but I definitely wouldn't have said that earlier in the split. But actually, everybody comes into Nvision as underdogs, just given recent form, right? So how do MNM go about tackling Nvision? Is it about drafting a strong side for Aragon and then playing through him? Is there another way that you think that they can try and attack them here as well? Because they've got a really experienced mid laner as well. BB Muffin is not a super experienced competitive mid laner. Vango, he's had wealths of experience, you know.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's really interesting talking about MNM, because what I just described, you'd think that there are 2 styles of MNM, right? There's either the style where Nautilus Thresh is going everywhere with Renekton top side, or there's a style where like Aragon's playing a tank and we're playing really heavily for bot lane. But sometimes they take a half measure in this regard, and you'll have like a Caitlyn bot lane with Nautilus bot lane, and they try to play heavily for bot lane because their top side is a tank like a Norn, like a Shen, but they can't play for it as heavily as they otherwise could if Dreampire was on a mage like Karma, for example. I don't want to see any half measures in draft like that. I think they can disrupt Nvision either way, because when these guys decide to play for bot, they play heavily for bot, right? So if Dreampire is on something like Karma and you do have Harry on something like Caitlyn, then I think that can work, with Aragon presumably on something like Shen or on a tank like this, right? Sure. But if Aragon is going to be on a carry like Renekton, etc., I don't want to see bot lane trying to play a Caitlyn with a support who's going to be roaming topside permanently, you know? I don't want to see half measures in this regard. I think if they all in on heavily playing for bot or heavily playing for top, that's the best thing for MNM. Don't want to see any of this in-between stuff. Commit to one of these, because they're not a team like Nvision where Nvision's jungle is able to play very heavily for his matchup. MNM's jungler definitely plays a lot more for his lanes, so give him one consistent advantage and have him play to that. You mask a lot of your flaws in that regard, and you'll be able to push Nvision in a way that a team like Nvision doesn't want to be pushed, will force them to react to you, and they can't play for economy anymore. And then Nvision is done. That's what I think MNM should do.
I'm getting the impression, if I can sum up what you said in a lay perspective, because that's me, I'm the lay guy. What I'm getting the impression is Nvision like to play an uninterrupted early game where they're not forced to make any awkward decisions in the laning phase, and they like to just farm up. That leaves Alex free to do what he wants, and usually that's play a farming jungler and become really strong in the mid game. And then when they're strong enough, they take these objective fights, which they know that they're going to win because they've just got huge advantages in economy. The impression I'm getting from MNM is for them to win, gank a lane, dive a turret, cause mayhem, do something that makes Nvision uncomfortable, because that's the way that you unlock this team and the way you can actually start to put pressure on them. That, to me, feels like it's going to be very draft dependent. We're about 30 seconds, 1 minute away from the draft, so I'm looking forward to getting to it. I like it. I like the sort of the angle that you're going for with these two teams. I think for me, I've just watched these teams grow, and I've really looked at them from a very top-down perspective, in the sense that I haven't been able to analyze exactly what's been going on. All I know is Nvision have got a lot better in like the last 6 games, and MNM have become from stable to coin flip. We are into draft, everybody, and they are targeting both Alex and BB Muffin pretty heavily, but you can see Harry also being targeted in the draft phase already with the Caitlyn ban. But Zoe is something, I think they played Zoe twice in the playoffs, by the way. BB Muffin got his hands on Zoe twice in those playoff tiebreakers, and he did do really well. And also, you know, he's someone that will default onto Orianna and Zoe in almost any team comp. So they're targeting him a little bit here, and also Camille being taken off the board.
That's really interesting, because we've actually seen a lot of Jax from UKLC teams. So maybe if MNM would decide to pick that up, that would actually be a pretty good pick into something like a Camille. Maybe this is indicating that they haven't really gone for that. Set gives you a lot of options in the game for Gadunica if he's going to be targeting a lane in particular. One ban that I really do like here is the Karthus ban in particular. I actually really do like that. And I like the Sona ban, because the Sona ban, so Sona Lux is something we've seen a lot of recently in upper leagues. It's impossible to dive and has so much pressure in lane. Either side you want to play for, Sona Lux suddenly looks really good. Syndra has been left open. We'll see if they are actually able to flex it on the side of Nvision. But yeah, overall I do like these bans and picks coming out right now. I think Ezreal could be a really strong pick as well, because now if MNM are thinking we're going to be playing heavily for a bot side, Ezreal is a champion that is pretty uniquely safe no matter how much range you're able to take. But yeah, the Caitlyn has been targeted away from Harry. Azir has been immediately moved in. Yeah, I'm not sure if I like the Azir here.
Why not? No. What do you not like about the Azir in this particular situation?
The problem with the Azir here is that the amount of heavy range on team on the right and the amount of poke that they could opt into on team on the right would effectively make an Azir that's looking to ever engage fairly worthless, and he's not going to be able to output the level of safe DPS that he would want to anyway. So I'm not sure I like the Azir here at all. I do like the Senna for matching range, but right now, Set and Azir look fairly useless actually compared to the draft on the right, except for the presence of the Olaf. Now, Olaf has been a really consistent pick on the side of Nvision. He is a pretty strong farming jungler right now, and you do want to contest a lot of early Drakes with that. But he is a jungler that would very much like to just opt into his full first clear and play that very safe and not have a lot of demands from his laners. If anything, your laners want to play for him, so it's a very typical Nvision pick. The Karthus is also normally a typical Nvision pick, but they've decided to try to deny MNM that. I'm interpreting all of Nvision's bans as bot lane specific bans right now. Bot lane Karthus is actually the strongest form of Karthus in the meta right now. And if MNM wanted to play really heavy, then they could do that. They've opted in for the Senna, and they've opted in for a Set. So I think we're more likely to see a topside focused MNM here. But we'll see, because Dreamfire has played the Maokai Senna in the past, farming with the Maokai, in which case we might see them play heavy for dives there, which would make sense with the Azir, right? That's a champion you can dive really effectively with on bot, and Set as well. The Trundle ban is very good if you're going to pick Olaf. Destroys Olaf straight up, and you are acknowledging that Set could very easily be bot lane with the Senna. The Bard pick indicates to us this is going to be a very heavy topside focus. So Bard plus Ezreal, really good because Ezreal can remain pretty safe. I have no clue if this is Maokai or Set bot right now, by the way, on the side of MNM. But with Ezreal playing really safe and Bard able to roam towards mid and then lean heavy with that towards top, that's probably a set of moves that we're going to see Nvision try at least once or twice this game, depending on what the top lane matchup is, which we don't know because they have left that for last rotation. Now, Shen is being hovered. Okay, this is a very heavy bot side driven draft by MNM. They're going to gank really heavily with the Set bot side onto the farming Maokai with Senna, and with Shen, they have a full shields composition. They should be able to dive. A lot of this will be dependent on what happens on midsection. We know that Gardinaka loves to gank his midsection, so maybe burning a Syndra flash would be really good for them. And there is the Jax. We've seen this a lot from UKLC. Spikes really insanely on 2 items. Spikes really insanely on 1 item even. This is one of the best split pushing champions in the game. He has long been underrated. And so you're seeing MNM playing really heavily for bot side, Nvision playing really heavily for top side out of this draft, but we know MNM are the team that likes to make things happen first. We'll see though with this Olaf if Nvision try to do something early as well, because this is the big issue of the draft right now for Nvision. They are playing a red side Olaf with Jax top. So Olaf is going to be looking to take advantage of red side advantage pathing around Drake and trying to play for that, but then you're playing for bot rather than playing for top, right?
Sure.
They might be wanting their top to scale a lot, but MNM have all the acceleration tools for bot on their team.
Let me ask you this question then. I want to refer back to the predicted win conditions for Nvision and MNM that we briefly talked about in the intro. So
yep.
Do these drafts for MNM, do you think they can disrupt? Do you think they can do something early? Do you think that they can actually put Nvision off kilter? Because that's the question, and that's the kind of the way that you wanted them to attack this game.
I mean, like, MNM's draft is not the thinking man's draft, right? It's the doing man's draft. And that's exactly what I wanted to see from them. No half measures there whatsoever. We're going to dive bot with the Maokai, with the Shen, with the Set, with 3 different shields coming out at once and a sustained passive. That's what they have. What you have on draft on the right is a bunch of very safe lane picks, very safe rotations in late game scenarios. They can play out range in these team fights, etc. But you do have this issue where Olaf wants to play for Drake, but your composition wants their top laner to get ahead, and enemy has picked for bot side Drake contests. So that's where we're going to see a lot of chaos coming out. And in that chaos, I favor MNM. If they don't bring that chaos, then later on in the game, I will end up favoring Nvision.
Yeah, okay. So you think if MNM can't get a grip on the early Drakes, that they can't get early dives to happen, they can't disrupt bot lane, that this is something that Nvision can just work with? Because you genuinely think when we get to the later stages of the game, they just have that split push win condition that's going to be impossible to deal with? Is that what we're looking at for Nvision?
Yep, they're not looking to play into the Jax on top at all. They don't have the right setup for that. They have a setup to destroy bot lane over and over again, which will destroy the Drake condition for Nvision, but Jax will be farming that whole time. So you have that timer on the Jax, and you won't be able to engage on this team later on.
Just for the benefit of our viewers, because I think it's nice to set this up, what should we be looking at for Jax? At what point are you going to turn to me when we're looking at this game off screen and say, all right, they've lost their chance, that's it, it's over?
Yep. Trinity Death Stance on Jax would be what I'd be looking for. Once those 2 items are out, then I'm pretty sure this Jax is just going to run away with the game.
And then there's just no way. I mean, obviously this all comes down to execution. There is still this is UKLC. We're tier 2. End of the day, like there is still situations where misplays can happen. We I think, and I genuinely think, even at the highest competitive level, split push win conditions are still the hardest win conditions to execute on, because they rely on a lot of decision making, and they rely on a lot of good trust in your teammates in certain situations. So I do think that whenever we see a split push win condition draft come in, I'm like, it makes sense, but teams are very liable to screw it up.
Yeah.
You know, that's my worry. That's my worry.
Well, everything I'm talking about here relies on the Syndra, the Ezreal actually playing at range, right? But if these guys don't actually play at range, they misstep too hard, the Azir, the Maokai, you better believe they are going to be on you. There's going to be more success on the side of MNM breaking that midsection than breaking the Jax side of the map, unless Jax decides while his whole team is off the map that this is the perfect time to start hammering tier 3 towers on top side, right? If he decides that, then maybe they can engage on the Jax. But if he doesn't do that, it's going to be all about this midsection. If they can force heavily on this midsection, then they can disrupt this no matter how big the Jax is at that point, because they'll just kill the midsection, lean towards Jax, and Jax just has to run away. It doesn't matter at that point. So that's what we're looking at. Don't misstep Nvision, and you'll have this later on.
Well, we're going into our first game of this best of 3. You've heard veterans' thoughts on the draft. It's now time to bring it to our casters. Hiprain and Orcs, they'll be guiding you through this best of 3. We'll see you soon.
Thank you very much, Excandrel. Hello and welcome. We are finally in playoffs for the UKLC. First best of 3 is going to be MNM Academy taking on Nvision. Orcs, we heard about what Veteran thinks about the team comps. What are you thinking of right now? What's got you excited about these two teams?
Well, I think you've raised some really good points. And I think the thing I want to hone in on is BB Muffin, because we talked a little bit on the desk about the inconsistencies of BB Muffin. And this could be the big factor, because we're talking about MNM wanting to force, wanting to look to capitalize on the likes of Syndra if Syndra doesn't play at range. I have seen BB Muffin time and time again actually end up mispositioning and end up getting caught out. So I think really it is on the Syndra, the one who doesn't have the safety that the Ezreal has, to be playing in a comfortable spot, because as Veteran was saying, Nvision have a good opportunity to take this game if they can deny MNM's aggression from coming out. And speaking of aggression, we're actually seeing Eragon go for the Ignite in the top lane.
Yeah, I don't know what you're saying, mate, because you're muted. I tried to do that subtly, so I have no idea what you said in that, but I'm sure it was very insightful. And I have
always a way to start the day.
You could have said anything.
It went out
there.
of the stream. It went out of the stream. I was just saying
the
about
stream
BB
heard
Muffin.
it, so that's fine. That's why I didn't interrupt you on that one.
BB Muffin's inconsistencies. MNM potentially looking to capitalize and catch out. Yeah. Also, final point, Eragon has Ignite, which is, that's pretty cool.
That's pretty baller. That is pretty baller. I do want to hit on the top lane matchup, actually, because Eragon, we were talking before the stream, and everyone seems to agree that Eragon is the standout player for MNM Academy. He's been so good top lane. Evan as well has also been one of our stellar top laners in this league. And on this Jax, we saw this, I believe, last week or the week before, him pulling this out. And like Veteran was hitting on it, it's a really effective split pusher. But also, one of the things we saw Evan use it very well for was not just split pushing. He was really good in the team fights with it as well. It offers a bit of both worlds. And Evan was exceptionally good at jumping onto the carries with that counter strike, catching them out, blowing them up, and then the team would just be able to run away with the rest of the fight.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to get to a point in this game where Evan's going to be able to do that so freely, and there's no one really on MNM who can challenge him. There's a lot of CC, sure, but the actual damage output outside of the Azir is pretty limited. Like, even a Senna later on is going to be doing that much, and everyone else is essentially going to be a tank build. So Evan will have free run after a point. When he gets to like the 3-item point, he'll eventually feel invincible in the team fight. So for Nvision, it's just about getting to that point, but also allowing Evan to farm up without being challenged and not collapsing around the bot side of the map.
Now, for any of our viewers who are just joining us, and this is the first ever UKLC match you've ever seen, this has probably been one of the tightest leagues we've ever got to cast. MNM, Nvision, Demise, and Munster all were 9-5 by the end of the regular split. There were tiebreakers. Unfortunately, we had to play them off stream because we weren't able to get them sorted for on air, but there were some deciding games that decided who was going where. But as far as the regular season goes, all of these teams were so tight. It was neck and neck the whole way down. So I'm expecting some really good playoffs here. Some really good playoffs.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the biggest indicator of this was London Esports could have locked in first with a win. With a loss, they went down to 6th place. I think that shows how close it was, that if one game made that difference. And obviously, they did lose it. It didn't end up here. And we've seen a big rise for the likes of Nvision off the back of that, because at the start of the split, we were looking at MNM. They're having a really good run. They have started to waver a bit, and we saw that in the tiebreakers, because this is our first seed from the tiebreakers against our 4th seed. MNM lost both their games. Nvision just had a clear run up to this spot now. And so Nvision are looking solid in that regard. They are in form, and over the last couple of weeks, they've started to pick up a ton of wins. They recently faced off against MNM in the regular season and won that one handily. But you're seeing a gang set up now.
Yeah, Counter-Strike's been used by Evan, and that just gives him a free taxi out. Alex doesn't even have to worry about it. He's just going to go back to base, spend up from his full clear, and go get a crab.
Yeah, it was just nicely played by Evan. Not too complicated, it wasn't too difficult, but the timing was right, and it basically meant that he couldn't get challenged there. It is interesting to see, though, MNM playing heavily around the top side, because this is one of my concerns with this composition, is you are looking to put emphasis on the bot side of the map. You're playing a Shen. You want to be able to lean into the fact of getting your center Maokai ahead and threaten dives onto this Ezreal under the tower. The fact that they're leaning so heavily topside is a little bit of a weird one for me, and this could potentially leave a vulnerability here.
Oh, no, you see BB Muffin actually get control of mid lane and just roam instantly down. Make sure that Alex can get this crab uncontested. Also, they had the ability to go in for the roams. He placed some wards down as well, so they'll spot Gdanika out on his rotations through now if he decides to go into this bot side, which we would expect him to do. Is at least what was highlighted as what MNM are trying to set up in this game so far.
Yeah, and you got to talk about the pros and cons of this situation. The benefit is that Evan is now pretty far down in CS, and he's getting punished quite handily. So that scaling Jack's win condition we talked about isn't going to be as much as a factor. Obviously, he's going to pick up some farm here, but he can't step up nearly as much. He's being threatened by this Shen, and Shen having Ignite as well means you can't just go for an all-in and expect it to always go favorably. So a nice way to punish for MNM and to slow down that scaling avenue. The issue is they've given up a lot of control on the bot side. You can see that in this vision control. There's so much great deep vision here that I love to see. That ward on Krogs is beautiful. That ward just next to the red buff as well means they know exactly where Gdanika is. And Gdanika is going to try and clear some of these out, but the sweeper is going to expire and he won't get too much. Will spot that ward there. But again, the job was getting the information. The information is achieved. Spark and Nash are going to be safe. And this just limits Eminem's ability to play the lanes out. And that is the critical thing that was talked about on the desk, is the fact that MNM want to be making plays early. So this favors Nvision to slow the game down in this way.
And that lead that you got, what you were talking about, the Aragon had picked up top lane, has now just been alleviated. 2 waves crash into Evan. He catches all of it and he's equal in CS. And early win conditions was something a veteran hit on the desk. The Dragon for MNM, the ability to deny Nvision from getting them and make that their point to contest is what's big here. And it looks like with the teleport advantage, it's actually going to just be Spark who comes in, but Evan still got his teleport, so Dragon picked up early for Nvision, and MNM already falling behind.
I mean, this is just perfect for Nvision. One of the big things that was talked about was the fact that Alex, as an Olaf on red side, loves to play around that Dragon. Really great setup for him, but the concern was, well, what about top lane?
They're going in onto Gdanika, the flash into the face breaker. BB Muffin will get taken down, and Vango finds first blood on the Azir.
Yeah, and that is the concern. BB Muffin, sometimes a vulnerability on these immobile mages, saw an opportunity there to punish, and does result in a kill and a flash burn from the Syndra. So a nice pickup for MNM, a nice setup from Gdanika, but ultimately doesn't really change the state of the game at the moment. Alex has had a really solid early game. He's up in farm, and critically, as I was saying, he got the Dragon. So that slows down MNM, potentially threaten a soul as a win condition. And MNM wanted to play through bot. They wanted to be contesting that early Dragon. They wanted to be getting a lead. This hasn't happened. And essentially, Nvision have just been able to play their lanes out pretty passively, which is super favorable for them.
And it's the Tear of the Goddess start on Vango. I've seen a few different opinions on this one, Orcs. I'd like to know what your one is on the Archangel's Azir.
I'm not a massive fan, in all honesty. And the reason being is I feel like Azir, as much as a lot of people think of him as a scaling champion, he has really great early spikes. Like his 2-item spike, his 3-item spikes are absolutely massive. And I feel like the Seraph just massively slows that down. And one of the things that Seraph is great for, if you think about Orianna, is not only just she stack it really quickly, but she gets an extra element of safety. Azir is already a very safe champion. That's the reason a lot of people pick him. He's able to use his Emperor's Divide. He's able to use his mobility to remain safe. A Seraph's is overkill. I feel like you want the damage. You either want to play for the Nash's spike early and have a lost chapter as well for a lot of CDR, or you want to play for something like a Luden so you have a lot of poke. those are options you can go for. Saras, I think, just slows you down way too much. And actually, if you look at the build Vango has so far, he's not really got anything. He's not got any AP to back up what he's trying to do. And I think it's just a way too passive a build, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's a very passive build. And obviously, it does give you, a bit more of a scaling element as you do go later and later. But like you said, you kind of want to hit those spikes early. You kind of want to get rolling. MNM need to look to play around these dragons. Now, one of the things we do have to watch is BB Muffin's flash is still down. Vango's about to get the Emperor's Divide back up. And that could just be a point for Gadonica to come back into this lane and just put BB Muffin further and further behind on the Syndra. Because like you said, mobile mages have been a problem for BB Muffin throughout the entirety of the season. And it's a very fair point. So I would like to see some kind of a repeat gank come through. It looks like Evan's actually going into the Blade of the Ruined King instead of the Triforce first on the Jax. Again, that's another kind of standard build for him. So not going to be the Triforce yet, but the Blade of the Ruined King obviously does help him with the ability to take towers and duel Aragon.
Yeah, I think the big thing with the Blade of the Ruined King is the dueling potential. On some champions more than other, it's super core and essential. Jax isn't one of those. You can get away with a lot of items in his build, depending on what you need. But the Blade of the Ruined King ensures that you'll just be super powerful in the duels. And even the early lifesteal is nice because you can trade heavily with Aragon on the Shen. And Shen has no innate sustain. He has shields that he can play around with. He has grasp that he can use, but he doesn't have the sustain of something like a Maokai. So if you do go for a heavy trade, you can back out, heal off the minions, and then look to fight again. So I think it puts Evan in a strong spot to be that side lane threat. And obviously later on, he'll still transition into a team fighting monster when he has the items to back him up. But ultimately, yeah. I just think the big thing we're going to be looking out for is Aragon stand united. That is going to be a pivotal point for MNM. If they can get a successful play off that, they can potentially push the momentum forward and look to continue this game at their pace. But if we see a flop on the stand united, with the length of the cooldown, MNM could end up just missing out on a lot of their win conditions. So that is my big concern, and that's what I think we need to keep our eyes on.
While we're talking items, I do want to note that Spark has gone for the tier and the Executioners to kind of deal with some of the healing, but Harry has. For the moment, the lane swap has actually come out, and MNM are going to move their bot lane up towards his top side, so looking to maybe pick up a Herald and try and get some kind of a congestion off. But I do worry that Alex is a bit further ahead of Gigantica right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's typical of Alex will often farm up to make himself relevant and strong. And when he plays for lanes, that doesn't necessarily mean ganking or investing a lot of time. He will lean to them to facilitate them so they get the waves in a good position to play theirs out. Now, something that's interesting to me is they opted not to match the swap in the typical way. They're actually leaning the support up to the top side and keeping the top laner there. So that's something that XL's team in the NLC often does. And they play around their top laner's strength and just allow their AD carry to farm up on their own. But honestly, to me, I feel like this is an indication that they're just not going to fight this objective because you don't have TP on the Ezreal. You're going to be committing to a 4v5 situation. I think they're just going to give this Herald up. And this is an opportunity for MNM to make a big proactive play on the back of this Herald with the fact that they have that stand united.
God has to be careful. There's a lot of members about. Guess this is slowed down by the axe and the Q from the Bard, but it's just going to step away for now. MNM got a pretty big wave there, just about to crash into Evan. Maybe we're going to see some plays actually go down onto BB Muffin mid lane. Remember, he is flashless, and Aragon looking to set up as Gadonica pulls him back, gets himself thrown down with the suplex, throws out the Haymaker shield as the railgun is going to come down, and BB Muffin's able to survive. Aragon flashes and ignites, finds himself the kill as the True Shot Barrage hits nobody. A 1-for-1 mid lane.
Yeah, ultimately a very aggressive play coming out from MNM. They do manage to punish BB Muffin on that flash, but Aragon has to trade both summoners there. And actually, he used his stand united up top lane, and it got cancelled there by Evan, I believe. No, sorry, it got cancelled by Nash. Evan had to disengage in that situation, but just seeing some great moves from Nash in this scenario. He manages to trade 1-for-1 with BB Muffin by being there around mid. He manages to stop the stand united from channeling to keep Evan safe. And although MNM are able to get this one play in the top lane, they don't really get much else from this situation. So a heavy committal, and really Nvision kind of just brush it off.
And I think the game plan there was kill BB Muffin quick, slap down the Herald, and get some gold onto Vango, because this item path is very, very slow to ramp up in power. So they just want to get Vango going as quick as possible. And sure, he now has an assist and an extra assist, but Didn't get any extra plates. He's going to go back to base now. But he is a little bit further behind. Goes for the tier 2 boots. Got sorcery boots for himself for now. So again, still no extra AP for this Azir.
We'll just have the amp tone now. And I think sorcery shoes are a big spike in the mid game for that extra damage. But again, I think those early 1-2 item spikes for Azir are really significant. As much as he is, as we said, a scaling champion, you can heavily play for those. And right now, we're getting close to a big power spike for the Syndra. So Syndra obviously has that ultimate available, the Unleashed Power. But at level 9, Syndra maxes the Dark Sphere and gets the bonus damage. But Evan, he's taking some bonus damage here.
Yeah, he's going to just get the counter strike onto Vango, maybe looking for the tower dive. Vango actually very, very low here. Is able to survive as he gets himself the kill. But the trade-off will be the second dragon for Nvision in the bot side of the map. And now they're setting up 2 more Drakes, and it's a Mountain Soul for Nvision.
And you got to look at the cost of that. So sure, they get a kill. That's nice. Oh, keep him off in.
Oh, good Tempered Fate dodge away there from Harry to avoid Nash.
Yeah, so they'll be able to get some damage on the top lane here, but they missed a massive wave bot is a critical factor. And on top of that, as much as they got that 1 kill, they lose out on the dragon. And MNM, having that early aggressive game plan, is now being limited heavily by the fact that their Dragon Soul win con is delayed by 10 minutes at minimum. So if we are to see MNM get a Dragon Soul, it won't be till 31 minutes in the game at a minimum. That is the soonest the MNM can have a Dragon Soul, and by that point the game will be in a very different situation that Jax will be extremely difficult to deal with. So I'm feeling a little bit concerned. I don't think the MNM have done enough in this early game to really warrant the picks that they've taken.
No, I agree with you on that one. Vango and BB Muffin are actually up in the top side of the map. Remember, they still got this Herald to place. BB Muffin's going to complete his base. Evan's mid lane, and Godonica just looking to set up the Rift Herald to try and get this gold onto Vango.
If you see Evan moving over, but he might end up being a little bit late in this scenario. I think you're just going to have to sacrifice this with the Herald down. You can catch the wave afterwards, but this is ultimately gone. It's not too bad. Obviously, giving over the Herald, there's always this threat that you lose a tower. But it does give a lot of gold over to Vango, and that is something I'm concerned about, because as we get later in the game, the Azir becomes more and more relevant for MNM to be their primary carry. Obviously, Senna doesn't do as much damage as a traditional...
Oh, Evan once again able to jump away from everything. First out the counter strike to make sure he's safe. That's 2 for 2 Vango has missed on there, Evan, with the Emperor's Divide.
Yeah, not too hot in that scenario, but ultimately, later in the game, Harry's damage is less relevant compared to a traditional AD carry. Vango needs to be the big driving force, and if you actually look at the gold numbers, I feel like Vango is the big driving force of the team. He's got 1,000 gold lead over BB Muffin, has the most gold in the game, so it really is going to be on his shoulders unless the rest of the MNM can step up to find opportunities for themselves, because right now there's a massive lead in the jungle. As much as the gold isn't so big because of those plates like Godonica picked up, if we look at the level difference, Alex being 2 levels up on this set is really concerning, because Godonica is just going to end up feeling useless as the game goes on.
Alex just farming up a storm. This is what was kind of hit on the desk, is what we expected from Alex. He is just a jungler who loves to power farm his way up and get strong that way. Is MNM, they're very contested. They're very happy not putting Harry and Dreampire versus Spark and Nash. Spark has just been quietly farming up bot lane this entire game. Completely uncontested. He's got 2,300 gold in his inventory because he just doesn't have to base. He's stacking that tier up. He is so happy right now.
And the thing is, look at his level. He's level 10. He's tied highest in the game. He's 2 levels up on Harry, 2 levels up on Dreampire. And the reason being is that Nash is still level 6. Nash has just not been in lane with him. Nash knows that you hit level 6 on the bard, you're happy to collect chimes, which gives you power, but he's just given so much solo XP to Spark that Spark is now going to be an absolute monster in the later stages of the game. So we talked about the Ezreal being super relevant later on. This is going to be true a lot sooner now, because the Ezreal has gotten so much solo XP in this game, and it's just been able to farm up a storm. So we're seeing one carry from MNM, who might be a big threat later on, which is this Azir. We're seeing multiple carries on the side of Nvision that will be a problem for MNM. And MNM should just be able to pick up this Herald, but with Dragon spawning in a minute, potentially the 3rd one for Nvision, they need to start chaining together these objectives. They need to start making an impact on this game.
What I want to see them do for MNM is I want to see them hold this Herald until Dragon spawns up. use it to get mid prio, and then rotate over. Something very, very common, but we do see quite a lot. And I think that's definitely the best game plan here for them. The bases are coming down, and MNM, I believe they're preparing for a fight. Everyone's going to go spend up some gold and try and get ready as quick as possible to deal with this Drake that's spawning up in 30 seconds. Vision control, though, is in favor of Nvision around the area.
Blue team's turret has been destroyed.
Aragon off in the top lane. Kaz got that Stand United available to him. BB Muffin's been forced to flash by Gdanika. That's now flashless Syndra to deal with. And with the charge available, great Tempered Fate will stop that from actually doing anything.
It's a simple thing.
MNM actually lose out on the tower there.
It's a simple thing, but teams keep forgetting about that. But now Engage coming in.
Yeah, Nash able to get the Magical Journey out. Alex not going to click on it. He's just going to run the long way around. Evan's gone up to the top lane, and Aragon's actually gone out of sight. So Nvision have to be a little careful on that front. True Shot Barrage is going to clip onto 2 members by Spark. Remember, he is very strong right now on this Ezreal. Dreampire almost poked out before we can even start. MNM in a bit of a scary situation. Evan's flanked in as well. Maybe MNM are just going to have to step away. They don't know where Evan is. They finally see him as the Dragon gets started.
Watch BB Muffin as well. Level 11. 2 points on that ultimate is a massive threat. And Gdanika, he's fishing for something.
Yeah, he's stepping up, gets the ultimate onto him. The Nature's Grasp catches out one. In comes the Shurima Shuffle onto Evan. He's been zoned out the pit already. Ragnarok's burning, and Gdanika finds himself the kill. That's going to be the Dragon for MNM, but they are corralled in the pit. Their health bars are way too low. They need to find a way out as Dreampire jumps in for the kill onto BB Muffin, and now MNM are looking to turn it around to Nvision. Only 2 left in the fight. I say that. Sparks around as well, looking for the kill onto Aragon. Aragon's able to dodge away on the last bit of the damage, and now it's Harry all alone without a team. Sparks takes him down. MNM get the Dragon, but at what cost?
It ends up being a 2-for-2 overall. So honestly, MNM, I'd take that one in this scenario. They managed to push that wave out mid, so a lot of farm missed as well. Ultimately, it's favorable for MNM, but it was so close. So many low HP bars, so many people just on the edge. They managed to maneuver the team fight pretty effectively. You can see that Alex and Evan committed into the pit and ended up getting punished for it. And really, it was just Spark and BB Muffin trying to do damage from the edge of the fight, and MNM just picking these windows to isolate targets and take them out. First, it was Evan, then they looked to take out Alex, and then it was just finding the angle on a BB Muffin and forcing people back without overcommitting too much. So, well played from MNM, but again, they don't get a massive advantage from that. They end up burning a lot of their cooldowns, and now they're going to have to reset and spend a bit more time getting back on the map.
Let's take stock of where we are item-wise now. Spark got 2/3 of the component towards his Trinity Force. Harry now has the Frozen Mallet, Dreampire with a Sunfire Cape. Seraph now fully stacked on Vango. He's building towards that Nash's Tooth, just as the Stinger at the moment. He's playing a little bit up in lane, so it's just going to back off. Nvision was setting up a Death Brush, and Vango reads the play.
My question is, imagine that same situation, but we had Nash's Tooth plus Lost Chapter on the Azir. Potentially could have seen just that little bit extra that MNM needed to take that team fight convincingly. But either way, they do manage to come out ahead of it. They're now looking to group towards this mid side of the map and just threaten. Potentially looking for this blue buff if they can deny it away from Nvision here. And Dreampire and Gdanika actually not going to opt into it, but they are going to zone BB Muffin away. So potentially you can look for something here to try and get a good angle onto this mid tower. It is quite low, despite the Herald charge not going through. The minions did crash into it and got a little bit of damage down.
Yeah, it looks like actually it's not going to be BB Muffin going into the mid lane. He's going bot side to deal with Vango's push. Spark's the one who's going to be gathering mid lane. And Gdanika just playing zone the BB Muffin game.
BB Muffin
Should just
has
be a
been
free
struggling.
tower.
Yeah, I mean, BB Muffin's been struggling to find a safe position in the game. And MNM is doing a good job of challenging that, making the Syndra feel vulnerable because of the lack of ability. And it's denying BB Muffin quite a bit. Like, Vango here is safe just to dash away. There's not really much they can do in return. BB Muffin, if he was caught out in that scenario, would certainly be dead. So, just showing the vulnerability the Syndra can have in these scenarios.
20 minutes on the clock. It's a 900 gold lead to MNM. The question I ask you, Walks, is it enough? Is 900 gold enough at this point for the MNM comp?
Definitely not. I mean, it's not over yet by any means, but you could have definitely amassed a bigger lead. And the critical thing is the dragons. You're 1 dragon to 2. And essentially, Nvision can just opt out of future dragons. If they felt like they're uncomfortable team fighting, they can just just chill out, just back off. They don't have to fight you on them because you're so far away from the soul. And ultimately, if you do start the Baron against the likes of an Ezreal, against the likes of a Bard, a Syndra, it's very dangerous. It's a really precarious position to be put in. So Nvision have bought themselves time, and it's on MNM to try and find these plays to force this.
Spark has to shift over the wall to get away from Gadunica. The mid lane turret will finally fall down. And with that, MNM have taken all 3 of the outer towers, while Nvision, they've not been able to take a single one. So there's a lot of locked gold on the map for them. 48 seconds until the next Drake spawns up. And you bet ya MNM are going to want to fight it. Like you said, though, Nvision, they can afford to lose this. They don't have to contest if they don't want to.
But they should be getting close to Spark, having that Man Immune and that Triforce, which is a huge spike for him. And honestly, it's just never a good look when you are 3 towers to 0 and you're only 1,000 gold up. Not even 1,000 gold. That is always really scary for me. And especially since the ones with the gold on the side of Nvision are these carries. Spark is so strong right now. I'm actually wondering how close he is to his Man Immune, because if he gets that before this fight, this would be massive.
Yeah, just got it.
Just there. So great spot, honestly, for Nvision to fight this one. They just have to be concerned about Vango. Vango on a 2-item spike. He is looking really powerful right now. He is the major concern for me on the side of MNM.
Ultimate available to Aragon. Has got that stand united. Gadunica trying to step up. Vango looking for the poke onto Alex. Goes in with the suplex. Onto Evan. The 2-man face breakers. The railgun comes down. The true shot barrage is flashed away over the wall. And Gadunica stands in the middle of everyone. Aragon very low HP. But MNM have just zoned Nvision off the dragon. They get themselves a kill onto the Olaf. And this will be dragon number 2 for MNM.
Beautiful engage there from Gadunica, finding the angle to threaten BB Muffin. And when they chase down the backline and threaten them in that way, it just left Alex exposed and vulnerable. So they get the dragon, they get a kill. And I feel a bit more confident about MNM right now. They need to be able to threaten this backline. And ultimately, BB Muffin just wasn't able to do anything. Just put all of BB Muffin's damage into the tank, into Gadunica. And it meant that they weren't really finding any success in that one when you have a set who's happy to absorb that damage with the shield.
Also took Evan out of the fight as well because he just ulted Evan backwards. So there was no way Evan was getting on Vango. Which meant the Pigeon Man was quite happy just to fire away from the backlines. Nvision, they do go to check the Baron. They don't actually know where MNM are right now.
Yeah, and this is the really pivotal point of the game, because if MNM finds success here, when it's difficult because they're not too far ahead in gold, they don't have the Dragon Soul win condition for another 9 minutes. And on top of that, it's hard to break these tier 2 towers. Tier 1 tower is fine, but tier 2 are difficult. So this is a precarious spot. And if we go the next 9 or so minutes and MNM don't find a good advantage or a lead, I'm concerned that the likes of Aragon, Gadunica, and Dreampire, that their damage will fall off and not be relevant. And then it really just becomes the Vango show. And as much as he's been doing a solid job so far, I'm not convinced he can carry this through the late game. So they need to keep the momentum going. They need to be finding opportunities to punish and ideally keep threatening BB Muffin in any situation where, you know, he's in the side lane or he's vulnerable setting up for a fight. That's what I need to see from MNM right now.
I want to highlight that we talked about how Evan was going to be, you know, a split push monster as this game goes on. So far, he's not really been able to do too much in the old split pushing front. Aragon's done a really good job of holding him down, denying him from overtaking the lanes. Obviously, as the game does go later, he will be able to. But for the moment, Evan's still just looking to farm up to a point where he's actually capable of really putting in the work on the side lanes.
And I mean, for now, it's a rough spot because the Shen is feeling pretty comfortable. And again, can just back away, doesn't have to interact with you, can just one-shot the wave with the Titanic. And the Azir, there's no one really who can answer effectively. You can clear the waves out, but Evan wouldn't win a 1v1 with Vango right now. Vango would either disengage from it if he felt he was going to lose, or he would probably win. And then again, there's Aragon threatening with that ult. So right now, Nvision just need to continue this defensive play and just stop MNM from finding any windows. That is the pivotal thing here. because if they do find that window, that opportunity to punish, it could lead to something significant. It could lead to that Baron, it could lead to that Dragon Soul. And as much as the Soul for Dragon does tend to fall off later in the game, the flat resistance bonuses is actually massive here for MNM. When you have the likes for like 3 melee frontliners who are building resistances, it does have a pretty big impact. And that's why you see BB Muffin already picking up the Void Staff on this Syndra, knowing that the resistances are going to stack up pretty quickly.
4 Mountain Drakes as well, if MNM can get them. Has been a little hairy for them in some of these pit fights, but being able to keep themselves somewhat in the game here. MNM, they're taking it slow at this point. These tier 2s are a little bit harder to actually siege onto without getting caught out. So they're setting up vision and just playing for the objectives. Evan's off in a side lane and now looking to be a bit of a nuisance, but Aragon should just be able to deal with him. He can always dash out the counter strike. Like I said, with that Titanic Hydra, he just deals with the wave like it's nothing.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing having to do. And the danger against a Shen is that if you go on the tower, can taunt you underneath it. And that's why you can actually die in a 1v1 situation. So Evan can't do much to apply pressure in the side lane. It's essentially just a waiting game until he's relevant enough in team fights. But we're still a while away from that point right now. Oh, Nash.
Nash may just get himself caught out. Vango, beautiful divide backwards. And gets himself a kill. Vango getting caught out. Sorry, Nash getting caught out. Give another kill over to Vango on the Azir. He's already got those 2 items and got a fair amount of gold to go and spend off that kill. Dragon coming up in 30 seconds. This means MNM are just afforded all of the vision control they want around the area.
Yeah, I mean, there's no way they contest this now. Even though Nash would be up in time, it's the fact that you don't have any vision. You can't go face checking, otherwise you will just get annihilated. So it just secures the 3rd Dragon for MNM, and a good punish from Vango, the sort of window you want to be able to find. You get a pick before the objective. Makes it very easy for you to pick that one up. So should just see them get that 3rd Dragon, and that's where it becomes a bit precarious because you don't want to give over the next one. Definitely gives a window over to MNM to continue their aggression for a bit longer with that extra shield. But actually, seen Nvision
Cat's going in, gets himself the face breaker, has the ulti to go backwards, slams him into the team, into the Nature's Grasp. That's a massive ultimate by the Bard, but Vango is just ripping through him, finds himself a double kill. Nash and Evan now looking to try and chase onto Vango. They do shove him back as Alex jumps in forward to get the stun off in time. Vango's still alive. Harry's able to get the kill in return, and MNM have just flipped this on his head. A shutdown onto Vango, another kill for Evan. He gets himself the double, but there's too many members on him. He's way too low, and Dreampire finishes up as Gdanica zones BB Muffin off. MNM win the team fight, and they win the 3rd Dragon.
And honestly, just some stellar play there. Nash with the perfect tempered fate to actually CC everyone on top of BB Muffin and allowing BB Muffin to walk it out. That actually looks super favorable, but Vango on a hero mission manages to take out Spark, single-handedly finds him on the back line. And we talked about this Ezreal being super farmed up, being a massive threat, level 14. Vango eliminates him and secures an advantage in that team fight. Despite the fact Evan was able to answer back, it just wasn't enough and it wasn't coming soon enough. So MNM, they get that dragon. Nvision did try and contest it. They also get the team fight win. So they're now only 2,000 gold ahead, but you'll definitely take that lead.
Banshee's Veil and Haunting Guy is now onto Vango. See the gold graph on your screen right now. It's been steadily going up and down for a little bit. And off the back of these last few plays and these last few moments, MNM have swung themselves ahead of Nvision. Remember though, this is the best of 3. This game is definitely not done yet. Evans hit his 2-item power spike. It's not the 2 items for Veteran highlighted on the desk as being the point where you can take over the game. I have to see whether or not these 2 items means that Evan will be able to run away with it.
Yeah, I think ideally you want a 3rd item here. Potentially there's the option of the Sterex, there's the option of the Death Dance, just something to make you a bit bulkier in these team fights. Oh, Vango could be in trouble.
Yep, just gets himself silenced, taken down, throws the shuffle out. Nature's Grasp only going to hit 1, and I was just pretty greedy by Vango to step up there.
I have no idea what he was going for, and actually this is a call for Nvision to go for the Baron. The strongest member of MNM is dead. They just want to force this. No TP for Vango as well, remember that.
Gdanica spots him out on top of a ward. The health bars are a little bit low. Evan's on the flank dealing with Gdanica. They actually just look to chase him down. 3k health onto the Baron, and MNM are just given this up. That's a free Baron to Nvision. Beautifully played by Nvision just to go, right, he overstepped. We found our pick. We're running it into the Baron pit. It was clean. It was controlled.
I mean, Evan's still going. Definitely a precarious one there. MNM coming ahead in the team fight, but obviously Evan in the side lane now becoming a really relevant threat. Picked up the Black Cleaver, so has 40% CGR, able to cut through those towers. Inhib still up, but you can see Evan really becoming a threat right now. But MNM looking to still continuously force these team fights, particularly still punishing BB Muffin there. And this is going to be the soul for MNM if they get this Mountain Drake. Nvision can equalize. I think losing the soul here would be massive. And we got to look at the big carries here. Spark on this Ezreal, Evan on this Jax. Both level 16, both with 3 items. But it's Vango on this Azir who needs to be the driving force. So looking towards him to be the big factor in this one for MNM. Oh, Engage coming in. Looking for Gidonica here. He's getting chunked out heavily, but he can turn this around. Vango ulting away and keeping a safe distance, but that is the Emperor's Divide down for the team fight. Gidonica also super low on HP now, so a precarious position for him. MNM looking to approach in this one. This could be the pivotal fight for the game.
MNM setting up to get on to the pit, but like you said, that Emperor's Divide is down at the moment, but MNM, they want to go for it. Gidonica zoned out as the good ulti comes in, but Aragorn goes in with a massive taunt in response. Gidonica actually has to flash away. The Railgun comes in. Vango putting the damage out, but the shields are there. Not enough to get him, and Alex is just running away with the fight. Dreampie stands in the middle. He is so tanky, trying to find the assassination off, but Nash takes him down, and then Vision fight back for the dragon.
Nvision found the fight there. Ultimately, Gidonica was too low on HP to provide a threat. Vango went in and looked like he could have made the hero play, but the Emperor's Divide was not available. Picture that scenario with an Emperor's Divide. That would have been a 4 or 5 man ult. That would have been the fight for MNM. Would have been the Mountain Soul and given them a massive advantage, but they used it on the initial fight, and MNM come out wanting. Evan now just going to push up with the rest of his team. Take down that mid lane outer tower finally. They're now looking at a 4k gold lead and even on those dragons.
That means the next dragon is going to be super important for both of these teams. Spark even steals away the red buff there.
See the gold in front of us, and I mean, here's the concern is that we have Vango propped up. 15,000 gold, highest in the game, is a massive carry. But at this point of the game, it feels like he's the only carry. Harry is not putting out significant damage. It's the fasting center with less gold, and also gone the tanky build with grass with the frozen mallet. And the rest of them are tanks, essentially. It literally has to be Vango to 1v9 these team fights in terms of the damage threat. Otherwise, Nvision just win. And we're looking at Evan, who's halfway through his Sterex and got those 3 items. We're looking at Spark with now his core items and then a QSS and an Executioner's. And Alex is still super tanky and relevant at that level 16. It's becoming very difficult. And I think this is hitting the point where the scaling has started to come in for Nvision. And I'm really concerned for MNM's chances here. Vango has to have the game of his life if they want to continue this one.
And I mean, in that dragon fight, he shifted into the middle of 4.
With no Empress Divide.
Yeah, and ultimately, that's never going to end well for an Azir. He could have played that fight as mechanically great as possible, but if you don't have the Emperor's Divide, if you're shifting into an Olaf and a Jax, you're probably going to go down, to be honest.
And I feel like, I don't know, maybe it was a mistake. Maybe it was the decision to go in and try and maximize DPS. But ultimately, the end result was it did not go well. And you can't do that. If you die, if Vango dies in this situation, the rest of the team cannot hold up. Because the damage just isn't really there to threaten the likes of Evan and Spark. They will just heal off your tanks. And unless you can kill them quickly, you're going to be in a difficult spot. So really, Vango needs to be playing perfectly in this one if they're going to find the advantage. Gold lead is still 4,000 over the Nvision. Dragon in 2-minute 40 and that Baron still up and available.
All right. Baron up. Vanguard's level 17. He's got the stopwatch. He's miles ahead of BB Muffin. BB Muffin, while strong, is not going to be outputting anywhere near what Vanguard is going to be outputting. Obviously, the difference is the multi-threat that Nvision have, and Vanguard kind of being the only real threat for strong and consistent DPS. Spark's got the QSS as well. That's what's key. The ability to be able to cleanse away from Dreampire, who can just lock him down with a point-and-click twisted advance.
Look, the items from Evan just picked up the Sterex, and this is the point. So the Blade Rune King Triforce gives you a ton of damage on the Jax. A great core for the attack speed, which is really important, the on-hit damage. But now you have the Black Cleave and Sterex. He is really tanky, especially when he pops the ultimate, being level 18 as well. So not only do you have to deal with the fact that Spark is super powerful, and again, level 18, you also have the threat of Evan, who is super concerning, 3k HP, and when he pops the ultimate, will have a ton of resistances as well. Vango just has too many targets he needs to deal with. That is my concern. So unless you get a grouped up Nvision where you can get a great Emperor's Divide and they can combo their big ultimates, it's concerning.
Dreampire getting chunked out pretty heavily here. Obviously does have some healing from Harry and his passive.
But very little magic resist actually on Dreampire if you look at the items.
Yeah, he's taking a fair amount of damage actually from Spark.
And this is great. Just chunk at the... Oh, never mind. never mind. Just ultra attacks a minion. I'm full HP. Well, not quite, but close enough. Oh, Vango looking.
Just going to get a little bit of damage off onto BB Muffin. Obviously has the healing from the center, but now remember he's used that shuffle. Going to get himself caught out. The Nature's Grasp is going to get thrown down, and Vanguard may just be on the receiving end of all of this damage. Evan's got the taunt. They do knock him away, but Spark pops up easily. Nvision just running through MNM now. They find themselves the kill they need. There was no ultimate coming out from Aragon. Cancelled up, and Nvision could just brute force their way through this tier 2 mid, and they're going to turn towards Baron.
Beautiful setup from Nash there, and the ability to punish Vango. He overstepped in that scenario, and he gets punished heavily for it. Their one carry, the one they have available, ends up going down because he tried to aggress on the BB Muffin, and the cost is huge. It was actually a nice stopwatch there to follow up with the Tempered Fate to dodge away a lot of damage, but it still wasn't enough. You ended up without mobility as the Azir, didn't end up even able to flash away, and the cost is massive. We're going to see the Mountain Soul now looking to be picked up here by Nvision, but they've already got that Baron. 10 seconds on Vango though, and does have TP, so keep your eye out for that. Looks like Nvision went for the reset first, but they're TPing in with gold spent. They're looking to fight this one.
This is Soul. This is it. Teleport's coming down, and Vango's looking to join up with the rest of the team. 7k health onto Baron already. Nash comes through. Good scat of the week into the true shot. Alex zoning away on the front line. Dreampire looks to jump in, but the Ragnarok gets used. Massive Tempered Fate catches out Vango, Harry, and Aragon. And with this, Nvision can just look to run through them. Vango being CC'd for absolutely ever. Able to shift away. Gets himself a shutdown in response, but he's pinned against the wall. It's a triple kill for Spark as he's looking to chase for more. He's got himself the quadra kill. Aragon was back against the wall. Spark gets the pentakill, and Nvision will close out game number 1.
Nvision just huge in that fight, and I just have to highlight how well they played the team fight there. Nash's Tempered Fate was massive. You could see the backline trying to play defensively from MNM. They got taken out the fight for 2.5 seconds. It allowed Nvision to keep pushing forwards, keep cleaning up, and then Evan again being that backline threat, jumping straight onto Vango. Just beautiful execution, and Spark so flawless with the cleanup on this Ezreal. Nvision Gonna take the series to a 1-0.
Game 1 going to Nvision. You can camp BB Muffin all you like, but Spark will take over with the help of Evan. That was just really, really well executed by Nvision. They understood their win conditions as that game got later. They recognized that Vango was the only one actually doing any damage for MNM, and they just singled him out and took him out every fight as that game got later and later. That was a good game for Nvision, but remember, it is a best of 3. There are still more games to go, and MNM, they need to fire back in this next game if they're going to pull this game back.
Yeah, and I think MNM, they had a win condition, and they just didn't play for it. They were leaning too much towards topside. They didn't capitalize on the early dragons. They didn't play around the Shen effectively. It was too slow, and it played really into Nvision's hand. Was that the flashiest game? No, it was quite slow-paced, easy going, and that's exactly what the desk highlighted Nvision were looking to do, and they just got exactly the game they wanted. Evan and Spark became monsters in the late game, and MNM played into their hands. I don't mind the draft from MNM at all, but we need to see them playing to their win conditions and not to Nvision's if they're going to come back in this series.
Yeah, because it felt like there was a moment where they realized what their draft actually was meant to do, but by that point they'd already given over 2 dragons, and it felt a little rough. I'd like to see some adaptation coming out from MNM coming into the next game. And while Evan obviously did split push and take a few towers here and there, ultimately the game wasn't decided by Nvision's split push. It was actually decided by their better team fighting and their ability for Alex and Evan to zone Vango out of the fights. And I have to give some big props to Nash. His Tempered Fates that game set up so many kills onto Vango. Every time he was picked off, it was normally off the back of something Nash had done. Nash, bar that one time where he got himself caught out by Vango, it looked like he was just coming back for blood every time.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, Nash was hugely instrumental, and one of the criticisms from Nvision was maybe not moving enough with your support. Nash was never in lane. He was providing for his team, but he also set Ezreal up really effectively. And this is something we actually see a lot from XL in the NLC. Something I'd compare to them is they leave their AD carry isolated. They do this a lot with Deadly. They allow them to get solo XP, solo gold, and they become this huge carry in the late game. It feels like Nvision, we're sort of playing to the similar win conditions that we see from the likes of BTXL in the NLC, and allowing their AD carry to really shine, because by all means, Spark did shine.
Alrighty, well, we're going to throw to a quick break after this game, but remember, it's still a best of 3, and we have an analyst desk on the UKLC for the first time ever. We're going to let Ex-Scoundrel and Veteran break this down, but before that, we'll have a quick break. See you in a second.
All right, that was a game. And I think realistically, it played out exactly as Veteran said. If you didn't get an early lead for MNM, you're doomed. Even though MNM did make it look a little bit easier than it should have done, I guess, for them for the most game. But, or rather, let's flip that around. Nvision made it look harder than it needed to be. That's how it went. Nvision just got to a certain point in the game and they just won. That's kind of how I think they've played for a lot of the times. Raisins, by the way, is joining us for post-game. Nice to have you here and good to have an extra face on the desk so we can start to work through some of these games together. Let's start with Raisins. What happened for MNM? Where did they go wrong?
Yeah, the way you said it sums it up kind of perfectly for me. Is Nvision made it a little harder on themselves. I think out of draft, they came out of draft with a bunch of options. They can use Jax to split. They have really good scaling with Syndra, with Ezreal. The issue for me was they never really put Jax in a position where he can create pressure for any length of time. They had 3 Drakes, which they ended up giving up, where they opted to contest with the Jax instead of just being happy to let Jax scale up, and kind of there was no threat of Dragon Soul for quite a while. So I would have liked to see Nvision just kind of slow the game down. They don't need to contest every Drake. They got the first 2 Drakes, and after that, those first 2 Drakes, I was thinking game is pretty much in their hands to lose now.
Yeah, I fully agree. I think the Camille ban makes a lot more sense in context of what we just saw from Nvision, because with Camille, you actually do get a lot out of those kinds of groupings that she does. She's very, very strong in flank scenarios. She's good in team fights. She's one of the only split pushers that is really good in that regard. You can't get that from Trin, you can't get that from Fiora. You definitely can't get that from Jax, short of like the most godlike E in the world. It's definitely more of a high variance play. The team I always think about when talking about the Dragon aspect that you brought up is G2, right? G2 are a team that are known to give up neutral objectives a lot to get better lane states, better economy for them. And if you think about not grouping Jax for any of these contests, maybe poke them out, but ultimately just trade those 2 Mountain Drakes, the first 2 Mountain Drakes, I think they should contest the 3rd one, for better economy on the Jax and for better lane states and a better reset so that you can get more economy later on in the game for your laners as well. That would always be better. And if you're going to play something like a Jax, that's the discipline aspect that we need Nvision to do. We know they play really heavily for individual lanes early game. Do that a bit more mid to late game, and you'll be really perfect to do these kinds of compositions. Just because Drakes are becoming a big thing and you could maybe rush the soul doesn't mean you have to commit to it. You win the game either way, guys, right? You don't have to panic.
So what I want to kind of briefly touch on before we go to break and then we work towards a second champion select is, what do you want to see changed? Because obviously I think Nvision, that was their game plan. It's kind of the game plan they've played this entire season, just get to a certain point, win the game. What do you want to see change for MNM? Veteran, I'll start with you this time. What do MNM need to shake up in the draft, or do they need to shake up anything, or is it more about the play style?
I mean, I think you can play heavy priority towards bot side without having to necessarily give up on damage on bot side. They had a very good team to force, and you did see some extensions from Nvision that we were talking about could happen, and they did force on those, but ultimately they were on a clock. You don't have to be on a clock, especially in this day and age. Caitlyn's being denied from you, but that's not the only tool you have. Ashe is still a champion. Aphelios is still a champion despite nerfs. You can even fight for Ezreal priority. There are plenty of champions you can play with on bot side with heavy range that you can then play very heavily towards and then have damage options later on. Or maybe just play heavily towards top if this is going to be the game plan from Nvision, and bring out the Renekton again from Aragon. He's been very good on that, especially in played arounds. They've been very good at playing around him on it. You can shut down their win condition from the start and then play the fast and loose game that you like to. Either one of these options is really fine. I'd just like to see more damage rather than just a straight focus on utility, just trying to shut down enemy win condition.
And Raisins, very quickly, because we are pushed for time here on break. What would you like to see? Do you agree with what everyone said? Have you got another perspective?
Yeah, more damage is pretty much the keyword. I would really like to see MNM's kind of tried and tested style of having kind of a Galio mid lane or a TF mid lane, something global which can affect the map and create, like Veteran was saying in pre-game, kind of that chaos to accelerate the game in their favor so they can contest these Drakes early and not have to give up the lead. So I think Galio and TF for me are I'm going to look for.
Yeah, I think also Vango, we know he's a great TF player, right? So it's something that suits him as the Galio. Guys, thank you so much for your insights here. We have got a break, and then we're going to be jumping into our second game of the series. Can MNM level it up? We'll see.
Like you'll ever get paid to play video games, they said. Now you're players, creators, fans, all in one huge and growing community. Squad up, we're Barclays.
UKLC is presented by Barclays and Curry's PC World.
Welcome back to the UKLC semi-finals. I'm Scoundrel here with Veteran, and we just saw Nvision take the first game fairly convincingly from MNM. They had a bit of scuffle in the mid game. They definitely made it harder than it needed to be, but Nvision played Nvision style, which is essentially wait it out and win the game eventually. We're going to go into draft. We already through the first 3 ban phases. MNM banning very similar, except for changing up for set to make sure that's not a first pick on blue side. But Nvision sticking to exactly the same ban strategy. Take away Harry's Caitlyn, ban the Sona so you don't get the Sona Lux lane, and then also taking away the Karthus. And the first pick looks like it's going to be Syndra Veteran.
I mean, and we were talking that we wanted to see more damage out the side of MNM on the bot side specifically, and Nvision are continuing to deny as much as possible from there. And with the Syndra first rotation, unless you're willing to go into like assassin-based counters, there will end up being a range discrepancy. What I would be thinking of right now is the Ezreal. Do you pick it away now, or do you risk them getting that kind of composition again? They have gone straight for the Ezreal. I do think this is one of the most broken picks you can possibly get on this patch. I think it is absurdly powerful, not just because of his range, but because he has access to the Iceborne Death Stance itemization tree, which makes him pretty invincible later on. So that plus his insane damage makes this guy like a tank ranged assassin, which obviously as a concept is a bit of a weird one. They've gone for the Azir again. I hope I don't have to witness the tier Azir, but we're probably gonna have to, let's be real. They did do a lot to attack BB Muffin with this Azir though last game, right? They did a lot of plays around midsection. BB Muffin was definitely falling a lot behind. And as a result, we didn't really get to see BB Muffin impact the map a lot, which allowed them to play heavily for side lane priority, which they did last game. Oh, the Ziggs.
This is this is classic. This is classic Nvision. They play a lot of this in the bot side of the map with Spark. So expect a bit more of a dominant push lane coming out from, especially, you know, post Ludens, etc. Rakan, which was banned away previously, by the way, from Nash. That was banned on the second rotation. They're going to go Ziggs, Rakan. What do we make of the Ziggs? I mean, obviously, it might be Ziggs mid for BB Muffin. You don't know. They could flex the Syndra down bot. But what do you make of this early draft rotation from Nvision so far?
So for me, the big thing when it comes to lanes like Ziggs, like Syndra on bot, is always going to be we're at a disadvantage until we hit our 1 item spike of Lost Chapter at about 1,300 gold. Once we do that, we basically win on any engage by our support. So going with the Rakan makes a lot of sense to me in that regard, because Rakan's a champion that will help you sustain up to that point until you get your first recall. And then once you do get your first item spike, is going to be able to enable those all-ins. However, you are now in a position where you have 2 very strong carries who are very heavy on magic damage. This is much less mixed damage than last game. So now I'm expecting to see, almost by necessity, a very heavy priority on AD carries in the jungle role. I'm thinking Kindred. I'm thinking maybe Graves, though I'm not sure I would enjoy playing Graves into an Ezreal composition, though I would like to play it into an Azir. Maybe on top side, we're gonna see him go back towards the Camille. Graves has actually been removed. There you go. We're gonna see him go back to the Camille, maybe towards Jax. Maybe towards this, but we do need heavy AD, or else itemization could get very easily if MNM opts into a tank pick.
So we're going to see, I'm assuming a jungler from MNM here, and that's going to allow Aragon to have the pick when it comes to the top side of the map. And there's something that we have talked about with MNM, is that they've generally had a very strong top side. This is going to be, I don't want to see Ganonicus Lee Sin again, personally. Okay, we're going to see Ganonicus Lee Sin again. We're going to wait to see what they go for on Aragon. But this is something that we wanted to see more from MNM. You know, they have a strong top laner. You know, utilizing him should be an option. And red side does unlock that for MNM. So maybe this is a game where they can find a bit more success.
Yep. And we are seeing the Trundle come out. So this is actually Lee Sin's actually a pretty good pick into Trundle post 6, because then he can match 2v2, 3v3 with his heavy burst and actually be able to win out on those fights versus Trundle, who is much more sustained DPS, though Trundle does win out in the early levels anyway. So it's a bit strange to see this here. I guess they're just saying that they don't believe that Kudunaka is going to be able to play very heavily around those early spikes where he is stronger. The Urgot pick is absolutely the definition of heavy AD around topside, so we are seeing a lot of mixed damage. They can't just pick a tank top and then build every single MR item in the game and become invincible. They're gonna have to deal with an Urgot Trundle. This is in a scenario where you're more likely to try to get Tabby's rush on first back, and that will leave you vulnerable to any sort of lockdown that leads into the burst from Ziggs and Syndra. So we are seeing Wukong. We are seeing Wukong into the Urgot. Wukong's still a very strong pick. I do think ultimately the individual champions on Team on the Right are stronger, but I do like the composition I'm seeing coming out of Nvision, even though my immediate concern is going to be, with this, you kind of want to play for heavy skirmishes around bot and mid, but you do have a top laner you really want to play for, and it's going to be very difficult to lock down this Ezreal. So I'm actually, this is a much more even draft than last game. I can't just straight up tell you Nvision's going to win or straight up tell you MNM is going to win. I do think there are a lot of windows for both right now. It's going to depend about how they play around their win conditions.
Well, let me expand on that topic then. We've got a few minutes, obviously, because we're playing on live, so we've got a few minutes to talk about this. What win conditions exist for Nvision? How do they execute on them? At what point in the game are we expecting them to make plays? So talk to me first about Team on the Left.
So Team on the Left, if they are going to be making heavy early plays, it's going to be around topside. I wouldn't be surprised to see BB, Muffin, and Trundle maybe go for a level 2 on midsection, and then maybe transition that into a third wave crash from Syndra, and then transition that into a topside gank, though you could see a level 2 gank be matched by Lee Sin. Lee Sin could also choose to attack bot side very, very heavily early on, but going red straight in towards a bot side gank is less likely for him. I do think, though, it's likely for Trundle to do a red into a transition gank on mid and then lean towards topside. Then maybe you see them lean from that with their mid laner into a topside gank early on, and that could be really beneficial for the Urgot specifically in this matchup. I think shutting down Wukong early and playing on Urgot early is what they want to do, and then pray that Ziggs doesn't get abused early on, right? If Ziggs does end up getting abused early on before his first back and you can disrupt that, that could be very bad for him, because he will lose out in DPS trades early and he just won't be a very powerful mage early. But once that guy gets to Lost Chapter and once Syndra gets to Lost Chapter, the game changes. If they can find engages, then they can win those engages, right? But you're doing it against an Ezreal, you know? That's the issue, right? You're trying to lock down Ezreal, and outside of Urgot, you don't really have point and click CC here, so it's difficult to set it up.
Well, very briefly, before we move over to the casters, what about MNM? Like, if you could sum it up in a few sentences, what about MNM's win conditions?
So MNM kind of do want to match towards top side early, though I think they will just have Lee Sin path straight towards bot side, because that's where they have priorities. And maybe they see Trundle do this, they'll trade camp priority on bot side for this, get a lot of pressure, get a better back for Ezreal, and just disrupt the scaling of Nvision that way. And if they do that, that's a viable way for them to play out the rest of the game. I'm pretty sure Ziz is going to try to see the early priority and just scale up again. But it's a lot easier for him to engage on Team on the Left than it was to engage last game. So long as Syndra doesn't have her E combo up, he does have a lot of options there, right?
So, like, if I could get a last word in, if you have a little thought about these drafts, do you think MNM can level the series with this game?
Yeah, I actually think that there is a possibility they can do so. We've seen that Nvision don't play properly around ranges 24/7, and right now they don't have something like the Jax that's always going to end up outscaling you no matter what's at a point. So if MNM do just try to keep forcing, and they do have really good tools to force with Azir, with Wukong, with Nautilus, and even with Lee Sin, and it's difficult to engage on them with like the Ezreal, etc., then yeah, I think there's a lot more opportunity for them to actually take this game. I actually would be willing to call it, given how chaotic the last game did for MNM's side right now. So yeah, I think this could even out the series, and we'll be going to a game 3.
There we go. You heard it here. Going to hand it over to our casters, Orcs and Hitbrain. We'll see you soon.
Thank you very much, Scoundrel. We're getting ready to go into game number 2 between Nvision and MNM. They've swapped sides of the Rift. The comps have changed up a little bit, and I'm much preferring this from MNM. It's not just about Vango on the Azir. They do have more win conditions. Harry's going to have the Ezreal to put out some damage. There's some great team fighting as well drafted in there. I much prefer this from MNM.
Yeah, and I honestly really like the Ezreal Azir combo. I think it's one of the things that have stood out in this meta because it makes your backline so hard to access, a lot of long-range damage that you can utilize, not a safety. So it really makes it difficult for Nvision to find those engages that they'll be looking for, even when they're on their spikes. But they do have the advantage of having the Ziggs. Sometimes I think Spark just picks Ziggs because it's comfort. I think legitimately it's good in this situation just because it doesn't need to be up close to be able to provide those ranges. It doesn't need to get in range. And often if you poke down before the fight, that can often provide the setup. But I completely agree. MNM have multiple threats now. They have Harry on a real carry who can be relevant in the late stages. They have Aragon on something that if he finds a lead, he can run away with.
Yeah, and for MNM, it really is do or die. If they don't get the win here, they are out of playoffs, they are out of runnings in the UKLC, and that is their run done. Not how you want to have such a tight and such an incredible season for all of these teams. You don't want to end on a 2-0. You want to at least push it as far as it can go. As we do take to the rift for game number 2, Nvision 1-0 up over MNM in this series.
I think especially for MNM as well, who had such a great journey over the season. The first 3 quarters, we were like, wow, this team, we didn't have the huge expectations for. They really surprised us. They came out swinging, and I thought this was a team to beat, but they've started to slip, and they need to bring it back this game. But it wasn't like last game was completely one-sided. I do think the draft was obviously a factor, but also they missed out on their win conditions. I think this one should give them a lot more room to play around with. It's not going to be as simple as, oh, we didn't execute early, so we lose. They have tools in the later stages of the game. But I think when you watch this Gudonica versus Alex matchup, I think that's the pivotal thing because Alex played for his lanes, but not in a way that he needed to aggressively gank. And then he got up a massive farm lead, whereas Gudonica kind of just fell behind really substantially. And this happens here. You're just going to end up useless as a Lee Sin.
You become a kickbot at that point. That is all you do. Now, looks like we are having a blue side start for Gudonica, making his way over. So both these teams starting on the bottom side of the map, both these junglers. So maybe we might see some action break out top lane for Evan and Aragon.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the leash coming out bot side, but I guess it does mean that Gudonica can go top side and give some help to Aragon, which is important. But essentially, it means Spark and Nash are guaranteed to shove. Because you can actually contest priority against the Ziggs early. Because as much as he does have his bouncing bomb, it's on a very long cooldown in the early levels. It's very mana intensive. So if you do start spamming it, it's going to cost you later on. So I'd actually like to see Harry and Dreampie here to contest this wave. Because ultimately, Alex just clears his camp by himself. So it's already given an advantage here. And at this point, Harry and Dreampie have to accept they're not going to find priority in this situation. The wave is just going to get shoved into them. So that immediate pressure, that level 1 that the Nautilus has, which is quite powerful, just not going to be there. And they are kind of going to be shoved in and have to bow down to the Ziggs and the Rakan.
Fango getting the shoving into BB Muffin early here. Spark does have to be a little careful. Level 2's come through. Dreampie just about misses out on the hook there. And that could have been a little bit dangerous to Spark.
Yeah, unfortunately, it was a bit too telegraphed for Dreampie, and the thing is, he was waiting for the minion to level up before he hooked. So it's not even like he could wait for, he could pick his moment. He kind of just had to go as soon as he hit level 2. So yeah, not too much threat. And again, Spark and Nash is able to shove this out now.
It's like Alex is making himself known on the top side of the map. Aragon spotted him out by that ward that was just outside the tri-bush. They know exactly when he is there and when he's going to leave.
The important thing is, though, his presence being there just means that Evan can crash the wave in and not be under threat. You know, Gudonica's not going to be there. Gudonica's not going to gank when he knows Alex is near. Alex will crush him in those early skirmishes. And it just allows Evan to get that wave under tower and then be in a safe position himself, not have to overextend for a significant period. And now he can get off that reset. Should be able to get a cheetah recall here, pick up an item, and have that advantage over Aragon while Aragon is still shoving in the wave. And actually going for the Cull in this scenario.
Yeah, looking just to try and get a bit of an investment in here off that base. We do see Gudonica actually go for an invade into Alex's jungle at this point. Although maybe it was just a little trip over the wall. Gudonica's going to get spotted. Dreampie goes in for the flash. They do disengage Harry momentarily as the knockout comes in, but the teleport's coming down as well. And MNM, now they have to scatter. The backup teleport's coming in as Evan was fresh off of his coal. Everybody's bot lane. And nobody's going down.
That was excessive, I'll be honest. Both these teams heavily focused on the bot side. Ultimately, Nash playing that one really well to get Spark out. You ended up trading summoners on the bot side, but you actually lose out because Evan burnt his flash as well. Ultimately, though, I think in terms of waves, top lane's actually pretty good for Evan to walk back. Just because there's a bigger wave on Aragon's side, he's actually missing a lot of farm in this situation. So pretty beneficial for Evan overall, despite the fact he loses his flash. But ultimately, Spark able to survive that gank is a critical factor. But I like to see that Gudonica is trying to be proactive.
Yeah, I do like that. Vango was able to shove a lane into BB Muffin, but he's on the Syndra. He's got the wave clear, so he's going to be okay for the moment. It looks like now MNM are going to start up this dragon. Remember, Vango does have the prio in his lane. So he's looking to step over to help the team. MNM now have to do a bit of zoning onto Nvision.
This is not strong spot for the Ziggs. You know, we're talking about the Lost Chapter spikes on the desk. They haven't hit that yet. And yet they're still looking to contest this one. But you can see low mana on Vango may be a concern.
Oh, good hurt. The knockup's going to come in, and that's actually massive, the turnaround. First blood. Then Nvision just find themselves too. Harry jumped in only to get knocked up by Nash, and Nvision just find free bot side. Beautifully executed, and this will be the dragon for them.
Just beautifully played there, and the knockup from Nash into the stun from Syndra. Great execution. BB Muffin using the rest of his mana for that one, and Vango, pre-level 6, doesn't have the ultimate to throw around. Gudonica not nearly as strong as the Trundle at this point. And ultimately, MNM just grouped up and got punished. So Dragon goes over to Nvision here, and pretty sizable gold lead already. So things looking rough for MNM pretty early in this one. And remember, 1-0 for Nvision. MNM loses, they are out.
That was not what they needed. I really feel like Harry didn't have to blast going over instantly. He could have continued to just queue over the wall. I don't know. Maybe I'm nitpicking a little bit here. End of the day, Nvision once again get an early dragon, get himself a good team fight. Gudonica falling behind to Alex. We'll be able to get this crab and equalize that out, but BB Muffin's waiting around, and Gudonica's going to spot him out. It has to now water hop away now.
Yeah, I don't think you want to tango with level 6 Syndra, especially when you don't know who's going to be there for backup. Do you see the swap coming in from Nvision now that the dragon's down? It's a pretty early swap. Still a minute before the Herald spawns, but it allows you to get a pretty big wave built up. And I cannot highlight this enough. Ziggs wins any pushing scenario. If you're looking to take a tower and you have a Ziggs on your side, you auto win. And that's what you have to be really careful about for MNM. Now, it looks like they're going to reset and match on the top side of the map. Evan's going to be able to pick up this big wave. But he's pretty happy with this scenario. But, you know, you already have Nvision on the top side of the map. They've already got that element of control there. They can look to crash the wave, play around that Herald. And you can actually see in the top side, they're very slowly pushing this up. They're trying to keep it here for as long as possible. Not only is it denying CS, but they can also push this up in time for the Herald spawn and look to take that. And once they have the Herald, they throw that down. Ziggs can almost kill the tower just from the Herald. And it basically means that a very easy first tower take.
MNM rotating some of their members up. Gudonica on the bottom side, actually doing the blue buff. He just wants to get 6 for this. Alex has the subjugate.
Okay, a lot of denial on CS, but this is where I'd like to see Spark start to push. You only double Lost Chapter spike. You may just have a lot of mana available, bit of AP to back them up. Now you can play for this Herald, so...
MNM aren't even contesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing is, Gudonica's bot lane.
Yeah, he's going in. He's looking for Evan. Has got the kick available, and that insect just going to get the kick back onto Evan to knock him up into the Cyclone, and Gudonica cashes in on the kill. Massive shuffle back by Vango as he has to flash away. Unleashed Power does connect into the Mega Inferno bomb. Vango low, the Meteor just about clips as Nash flashes forward and gets him with a Gleaming Quill.
Yeah, I mean, you get the Herald, you get a kill. Of course, it's on a Nash and not onto Gudonica, so not as ideal. But you don't have the Herald, so... this is just going to be a winning push for Nvision in this situation. MNM not willing to contest them means they're going to lose out heavily. I mean, you can just throw the Herald down here and you'll take the tower.
They may just actually look to do it bot lane. No, they're doing it now. Okay, I was about to say, are they just greeding from as many plates as possible?
I mean, yeah, just throw this Satchel straight after, and this is gone.
There it is. But
Such a huge amount of gold. Oh no.
Gad's down.
Yeah, I mean, I guess just Gadonica overstayed and face checking, and this is a really rough game from a rough series from so far.
No.
Nice stun from BB Muffin.
Beautifully placed. Nothing more's going to come of it, but that was a really, really clean stun by BB Muffin.
I'm just... Again, we're seeing tier from Vango. We have tier Ionian boots from Harry, so he's not strong. MNM just feels like they're not wanting to play this early game, but you have to contest this. You have to at least put up some fight or get something in return. You got 1 kill on Evan, and then Gadonica dies, so you don't even get a benefit. And now we're seeing a nearly 4k gold lead for Nvision. They're in such a strong spot right now. And this is a Ziggs. If you let a Ziggs get momentum in the early game, your towers are forfeit. And there's still 8 plates up and available across the map. So I am really scared for MNM right now. Gadonica is going to feel irrelevant pretty soon. And without momentum, I feel like the rest of their team is going to struggle.
Ten minutes on the clock, and Nvision just brute forcing their way through the mid. They have got all the members around for wave clear, but the key thing is the control this affords them. 30 seconds until that Infernal Drake comes up.
Look how scared, though, MNM are. The fact that they have to bring Vango and Harry to defend mid. And like, I'm not saying it's wrong. You should be scared. But this now means that BB Muffin can crash a wave in bot. And Vango's not even going to step up to it. Vango's resetting. They're just missing out farm in the side lanes. And again, okay, yeah, try kill 11. See how it goes. Even if you get him, it doesn't matter.
Yep, they're going in. Get the kick back into the Cyclone. Teleport's coming in. And MNM actually just committed everybody for a kill onto Evan. They're going to give over Dragon. That is MNM basically saying they don't want to fight. They want to trade objectives and maybe pick a kill up here and there, but I just don't think this favors them long term.
Yeah, I mean, sure, you get the tower. It's nice to trade cross map, but you're going to lose this bot lane tower now. And you're not even going to finish the tower off top lane. It's too tanky. And you lose the Dragon. It's just a heavy investment, and the reward isn't that big for the side of MNM.
And like you said, you don't win a sieging, like a tower taking versus a Ziggs.
I mean, yeah,
and then they're going to slowly
this.
but surely chip away at this turret. Look how tanky it is. This plate is taking forever to go down.
I mean,
let's just quickly ping over the bot lane, see what's going on there. Oh, Spark's already got it pretty low. Getting close enough to the point where you can charge it. Nvision is just so far ahead right now.
Yeah, and against 3 people with the Rakan not really contributing, wins the tower race, and now mid lane's going to be threatened.
Just might have to hold that for the moment. Dreampire flashes away, and Harry now, he's on the run, flashes over the wall, but they do get out. And just to put that in perspective, MNM took 4 plates and a tower in the time it took Nvision to take an Infernal Drake, then rotate Spark bot lane to take 4 plates and a tower, and they still lost that race.
Oh, it's looking really dire. Normally, I'm heavily in favor of making these crop smart plays when you're behind, but I really think MNM are just so behind already. It's starting to look really rough.
Yeah, Vango's down to BB Muffin. This time they haven't hard shot BB Muffin down, so he's relevant on the Cinder. He's up in CS. You can see the gold. 1,000 between BB Muffin and Vango. And difference is Vango's got the tier build on the Azir. So BB Muffin just has more flat damage to work with at the moment, even if we weren't looking at a 1,000 gold lead.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you look at the difference between the bot laners here. We've got Spark already, the Ludens compared to just components for Harry. And Ludens is a massive spike for Ziggs, not just in the amount of damage that he's able to offer, but also his ability to push waves out. Your bouncing bomb now just one-hits the casters. Doesn't even need it there because BB Muffin's there as well, but it means your shoving power is huge. They're trying to group up mid and threaten this now. MNM, they could answer.
Yeah, they're looking for the 15 plates, but that may be a bit too greedy. That plate will fall off in the mid lane, so it's 13 plater. Aragon's off in the bot side, and Gadonica being zoned away as the tower plates will finally fall off. And Nvision, a 13 plate start to this game. They are 5,000 gold up. Well, 4,000 gold up over Nvision right now.
Yeah, not a big fan. Evan overstayed top quite a bit there, and it ended up costing them a lot in the bot lane. So a little bit messy there from Nvision. So they're giving windows for Aragon to get strong. He does get that tower as well. Ultimately, I feel like with this lead, you should be choking out the opponents more, but they're still pretty significantly ahead right now. Plates have fallen. And in all honesty, we get 11 plates out of MNM get 11 and Nvision. Actually, no, they didn't get the full 11 because Aragon didn't finish the tower off, but they get about 9 or 10. And Nvision only get 13. So it's not as big of a gap as it could have been, but it's still significant.
Harry's just holding this mid lane as much as possible. Looks like once again a gank is getting set up on to Evan, so it's his time to be getting power ganked. Aragon jumps in, flips him back, has to flash away from the Cyclone. The kick goes wide by Gadonica. That's a flash for a kick. And Nvision, they're just going to answer out with a Rift Herald in the mid lane. I don't think they even need to put it down to actually pop this turret. As Gadonica, Dreampire, and Aragon are out now all looking for Evan. Does have that ultimate available as the depth charge lands in. The Fear Beyond Depth available as he gets kicked back into Gadonica. Slides in as Dreampire picks up the kill in response.
I mean, honestly, the one win con for MNM is the fact that Evan is playing this really badly. He's just consistently overextending when you know you don't have the support or the backup, and he's getting punished for it. It's still going to be pretty good for Nvision because they get the Herald, they get that mid tower, but realistically, Evan should not be pushed up in those scenarios. You're now losing that bot tier 2. You died as well, essentially for nothing. You didn't need to step up in that situation. You didn't need to have your flash burn. You could have potentially contested on a tower after the wave thinned out. It's just very messy from Evan, and it's kind of holding down Nvision to the point where, I mean, there's still 3,000 gold up, there's still 2 dragons up, but they could have been much further ahead.
Manamiene's just been finished up for Harry. He's got the tier. The Archangels is finished up for Vango. It's not stacked to an Archangels. Which way round is it? Is Seraph's the stack?
Yeah, Archangels is the one you buy. Seraph's is the stacked one.
Thank you. Server points out for me. Archangels finished up for Vango. This dragon is pretty important. Expect MNM to contest it. Teleport's available to Aragon. But I just feel like Vango's in such a power trough right now.
I mean,
that contesting this is going to be really rough.
It's a rough spot for MNM as a whole. Vango's in a power trough, as is Harry. We're looking at BB Muffin and Spark on these Luden spikes, which are huge. It really needs to come down to Aragon having a big play here, but it looks like they're not even contesting this one.
True shot. Just going to make sure they have the vision to work with. Gadonica's kind of played a very passive game. He always looks to try and contest elsewhere.
I mean, he's been playing the cross-map game heavily. And obviously, you can talk about the strengths of Nvision's composition at this time, avoiding those plays. But I think Gadonica's done it to the point of an extremity. And now I am super concerned because they're 1 dragon away from Soul. They're still about 3,000 gold up. And it's not like MNM are going to hit a point where they're like, oh, okay, we outscale now because Ziggs is going to be super relevant throughout the game. Gadonica he's missed his peak. He is no longer going to be relevant unless he's finding kicks, as you said, like a kick bot. It's really going to come down to the rest of the team to find the advantage.
Dreampire has to hook away from the scout of the week, is able to do so. Remember, Nvision still have this Rift Herald in the pocket of Alex. Vango off split pushing in the bot lane. Well,
a lot of this
collecting farm more than split pushing.
Yeah, we saw a lot of this last game, though. Vango just able to pick a farm and become really strong. But again, just concerned about this one. We need to see MNM on this next Drake find an avenue to approach this team fight. I think ultimately you want to play around your long range. You want to threaten BB Muffin and Spark with the likes of Aragon with that Cyclone. That's where you can potentially find an avenue. I'd love to see a Cyclone on the back line with maybe a True Shot coming in as well. And realistically, Alex and Evan should have difficulty getting on top of Vango and Harry, but we'll have to see it executed. Now, MNM, this is a dangerous lean because Nvision aren't too far away. I think Spark can just ult the wave here, in all honesty. I'm not sure why he isn't.
Looks like MNM are just going to be able to pick this up. Nvision decide they don't want to contest it now, but rotating the members up. And Nash actually pops the Shurelias just to get a bit of a jog towards the MNM members. And Harry and Vango are now the 2 who step up in the mid lane. Get a little bit of poke damage off onto the turret and Alex as MNM step away. And there have been some issues. I think that is very much apparent here for MNM. I will say their cross-mapping and leaning towards Aragon is probably the only redeeming feature this game for MNM right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's been overkill at times, but they found a window there. Honestly, I'm not sure what Nvision were doing. Spark not ulting. The Ziggs ult is a super low cooldown. You just throw it. Trust me on that. You just throw it. You see a wave being pushed, throw it down. Just clear the wave out, assist Evan, and then you can look to wait for the cooldown. It really is not a long cooldown. especially now he's level 11. So that's questionable to me. And also on top of that, it's the Void Staff pickup. I don't know why you're going Void Staff second. There's no magic resist really on MNM other than those Merc Treads. The Liandry's would have been a much better buy in absolute terms. And we're now seeing the Herald just thrown down mid with no setup. I feel like Nvision have suddenly just taken their foot off the pedal. And MNM, they have a chance to defend here. Tower's going to come up from the
love
tier.
it. I love it. Beautifully placed there by Vango. Sure, you're losing a Zir turret, and that is a fairly lengthy CD, but even so, that was wonderful.
I mean, it's well played from MNM. I can't fault them for that. They were really far behind. They've been finding these windows, finding these avenues. But Nvision just feels like they've fallen asleep. It's like they think the series is already over. No, you have to actually win this game for the series to be over. And as a result, they really have just let MNM do what they want for the past couple of minutes. Yeah. Dragon spawning in a minute 30, which would be the soul for Nvision.
I do want to note
more
as
strength
well
from Harry with the mana immune stacked, so might be a more even fight.
I do want to note the gold difference between the teams at this point. 33,000 gold to 35,000 gold. Last time I brought it up, it was closing on 5k. The gold lead is still in Nvision's favor, but it is slowly but surely coming back towards MNM. That is mainly off the ability for them to go into these side lanes, split push the tower with Eragon, and crack that open. Like you said, Dragon spawning up in a minute, and I want to see how Nvision's set up for it.
Well, mid priority a big factor already, so they'll shove that one up and then start to rotate down. You actually see a lot of wards on the bot side of the map away from them. I'd love to see a TP flank from Eragon. Vango actually already just coming in to get some distance, but these are perfect opportunities for Eragon to find some backline access. And ultimately, if they do that, that's where they can find some success, because BB Muffin and Spark, pound for pound, are just stronger than Vango and Harry right now. If you catch them out and kill them, you could find a good avenue to approach this fight. Now, Gudonica, forget the Raptors. No one really cares about them anymore. You need to find an avenue to approach. And Gudonica...
Oh, no. Gad has to jump away. Is forced to flash, but doesn't take the unleashed powers. Evan finds out Vango. Vango has to shuffle away from Evan. That's a lot of damage onto him. MNM, look at Eragon on that flank like you highlighted. He has found Spark and Nash. Dreampire goes in for the kick onto BB Muffin. The unleashed power connects onto him. Vango remains to fire out here as he jumps in. The four-man shuffle back into the Cyclone. Vango's gone golden, but he's going to get picked up by Spark at the beginning of the fight. Here comes the Mega Inferno Bomb. Shutdowns packed up onto Gudonica. And MNM, they still don't have the members, still don't have the health bars to work with, but the shielding is coming forward. Spark throwing those bombs out over the walls. The shutdown's being picked up for Harry. Evan and Alex, the only ones left standing. And Harry's going melee versus a Trundle. Dreampire can't join in. He's just running over the bombs. He's slowed. The hook connects, and Harry's trying to buy some space from Evan and Alex, and now it's Dreampire who's going to get sacrificed for the team. Nvision walk away with the team fight.
Yeah, my biggest criticism there for MNM has to be their carries performance. We talked about the Ezreal and the Azir playing for their range advantages. That was a melee range Azir and a melee range Ezreal. Questionable at best, and ultimately when they were grouped up against the Trundle and the Urgot, they were perfectly happy with that situation. This is going to be Soul. Secured for Nvision already at 22 minutes 50. A Mountain Soul is so rough to deal with because you're already down in damage at this point. We're already seeing MNM struggling to find the damage in these team fights. You've just whacked a big shield onto everyone in Nvision. Extra resistances as well. It's so difficult to see an avenue where MNM win a team fight right now. Because, I mean, I respect the play from Vango with the shuffle, but ultimately it didn't do enough damage. And then they just didn't have the cleanup. Harry going into melee range of the Trundle just doesn't do enough. And they didn't have the damage to cut through anyone. Now we have the Triforce from Harry. It's a different story, but we're currently dealing with that Mountain Shield. You can see everyone on the team has it. This could just end up being a 2-0 from this point unless MNM really find a way to stall this out and use their carry's ranged advantages.
"23 minutes on the clock, and Nvision are ahead right now. Manamune fully stacked onto Harry. He's got the Triforce as well, and MNM feeling it a little bit, but remember, the Mountain Soul's there. Dreampire's going to pop the Stone Plate to try and survive. Gad comes in, gets charmed up underneath the tower, throws the kick out, gets himself the block back onto Alex. Alex goes golden, and now he's going to get picked up on the return. Shutdown's picked up, but BB Muffin just gets a complete evaporation onto Vango's health bar. Dreampire has to just hook away to get himself some distance as Evan gets a double kill. And MNM, just dismantled by Nvision.
I mean, the engage was so botched. We just see them walk up to Alex. Gajonica doesn't find the kick, and then they're like, okay, I guess we'll just go on Alex. Sure, go on this Fed Trundle, who's got a Mountain Soul. Took them so long to kill him that it was just very easy for Nvision to turn around in return. And now Nvision, they're like, cool, hand us a free team fight. We'll take it.
Harry's going to take a lot of damage here, trying to sidestep everything. Is able to do so, but BB Muffin finally finishes him off. Nvision just turned back towards the tower, take that out. Baron's up. They've got the vision. They've got the control. MNM don't have an AD carry. Nvision may just look to go for Baron here.
I think it's a bit risky with the mana level, particularly of Spark being so low. I don't think you need to risk it in this situation. You just take the team fight win. You take the 5k gold lead and Mountain Soul in your pocket. You're fine with that scenario. And now we're seeing Azonia's come in for Spark, so even more safety on the Ziggs. Going to be extremely difficult to find that backline access. And at this point, I am really concerned for MNM. I think ultimately you're going to need Nvision to make a mistake at Baron for you to find a window back in this game. The only other alternative is finding a numbers advantage. That's so hard to do right now because if you're not going to find a numbers advantage around Baron because Nvision are going to be playing around it. The only numbers advantage you can find is if Evan overextends. But if you go for him, you could potentially just sacrifice the Baron. So it's rough right now for MNM. And this is the last hope to remain in the competition. If they lose this, they are out.
It is very, very scary for MNM to be in this situation. And what has been such a close league, and a league that they have probably been one of the most consistent teams throughout. For it to crumble here would be heartbreaking. Now, Nvision, they're setting up towards this Baron area. And then slowly but surely just going to try and make their way back into the jungle, but they don't really have any vision to go in for the blind checking.
Especially for MNM as an org. They've had a rough split in the NLC, and the UKLC team was like the redeeming factor. First place in the league for quite some time, and this was looking like it was going to be a good playoff run for them, but they've just faltered. And now in this game, we said they needed to bounce back. We said we needed to find them. Pulling themselves together for this game, challenging Nvision in these early skirmishes, looking to make the game favored towards them and looking to contest early advantages, and they just haven't. You know, MNM just haven't really done anything particularly aggressive. They've played the back seat throughout these games, and Nvision has honestly loved it.
I mean, I've been singing Gadonica's praises for a lot of this split, and I am not impressed by this Lee Sin at all. It looks like for now, MNM gonna throw the teleport down. The Baron's gonna get started up, and already 9k HP. Vango gonna shuffle forward as Nash pops the quickness and the ulti. Doesn't actually hit anyone. Aragon slides in, gets the Cyclone off, and actually that's going to be enough to pull them off for the moment. They get themselves a shutdown. Vango has to shuffle away for the moment, and MNM able to get themselves the kills they need and stop the Baron from happening.
Yeah, just a bit of a whiff in a lot of regards from Vision there that gave them that turnaround kill, but ultimately MNM couldn't continue the fight. And the Mountain Soul, not the soul itself, but the map actually limited them quite a bit. If you see that pillar of land just near the Raptors, that actually makes it very difficult to approach the Baron, because if you look at the size of the Hextech minefield, you can place one of those down and it just completely blocks one of these passageways through. So it actually really plays well into the Ziggs, having those extra bits of terrain down, and makes it very hard for you to approach this Baron without walking through the minefield, which obviously slows you down, does a ton of damage. So MNM, they respond well, they find a pick, they're unable to find more, and Nvision lose a little bit, but not too much. But Elder, this is an early Elder by all means, spawning in 10 seconds. And Nvision looking position, but Aragon might find the flank.
Yeah, Gadonica gets himself the kickback. Vango comes in, shuffles there. They do have the damage to work with for the moment. Massive Mega Inferno Bomber. Spark finds himself a kill. BB Muffin gets the Unleashed power off, and Aragon looks to hunt him down. Evan has to go golden as Evan throws out the ulti. Gets the Fear Beyond Death. Aragon's going to get picked up. Gadonica's next to full. Double kill for Evan as Dreampire flashes and hooks to safety. And Vision slaughter MNM.
Yeah, and I mean, this is a situation where Nvision slapped them with their wallets. It was a good team fight for MNM. They found a flank, they punished Spark, and it just doesn't matter. They're so bulky, they don't have the damage to cut through not only the health bars, but also the shields from the Mountain Soul as well. It's so difficult to play against the early Mountain Soul, especially when you're behind. And now the Elder Dragon is forfeit for Nvision. They can reset off the back of this, they can head over to that Baron, and it's impossible for MNM to contest it, really. It's going to take a miracle.
Can MNM find that miracle? I'm watching Harry here. Feels like the carry for MNM, who is capable of doing the most here. He's got the Manamine, he's got the tier. Sorry, not the tier. He's got the Triforce. Hex Drinker available to survive some of the burst from Spark and BB Muffin. Goes back and gets himself a Cutlass. Harry is going to have to put some monstrous work in as MNM set up a Death Rush up. Instantly spotted out by Gleaming Quill. They didn't have Harry either, so it would have been a 4v5.
Yeah, and I mean, realistically, engaged on the Trundle, it just isn't going to go well. He is so tanky right now. So far ahead, and they're just going to start the Baron. MNM need to come contest this. And it's not even just contesting it, it's getting the poke down early. But they're not doing so. Baron is just gone in this situation, and they're not even trying to contest it. They're giving this up.
Gonna throw the true shot. It was close, but no cigar. Nvision gonna get their empowered bases off as MNM, like, their attempt was, I assume, to contest the tower and get a tower, but they don't even stay around because Nvision now running around with Elder and Baron is terrifying. And for me, it's a matter of watching how cleanly Nvision can close this series out.
Well, I think we have to look at it from MNM's scope and say they can't contest the Baron. They failed on the Elder. Now, they just need a turtle. They just need a wave clear, and they need to survive till these buffs run out. And it is going to be the hardest part of the game. And Vango...
Well, Vango getting caught already. Gets the depth charge thrown onto him. Mega Inferno Bomb, and Spark
Where'd he go?
just rushes him. Blink and you'll miss it. Vango goes down, and Alex gets the Dragon, the Gift of the Elder off. Get a kill onto Dreampire. 4 versus 5. Nvision are just going to power their way into the base of MNM. And MNM Academy, it has been a solid season for them, but it has not been a good best of 3. Nvision just look controlled. They look powerful as they are booking themselves a ticket towards the finals. It's an absolutely desperation play, but Harry will get taken down. Spark secures the kill as the final tower will crumble. The Nexus will fall at 32 minutes, and Nvision are into the finals.
Huge play coming out from Vision. I don't think a lot of people would have expected them to finish the regular season first and make it to the finals, but they have been just performing so well. They know their game plan, they know their comfort, they know what they have to do, and although the game is slower paced, they forced MNM to play to their tune, and they end up getting the win and getting themselves to finals. So massive congratulations to them. But it's honestly just rough. Seeing this MNM compared to what we saw throughout the split definitely feels like a different team, and it's an unfortunate end to the season, but they did give us a lot of good highlights throughout.
It is a really sad way to see MNM going, because if you just tuned in now for the first time you ever watched the UKLC and you saw MNM get 2-0, you go, wow, that team, you know, how do they make it to playoffs? They were good. They were, I would argue, one of the more consistent teams throughout the regular season. This playoff form was a little weak. It was a little lackluster. I think game 1 was definitely better than game 2 for them, but they had a very limited scope in the team they drafted for themselves. And this game, Nvision just came out swinging. And Nvision have seriously impressed me in this playoffs. I mean, to make it to finals, or well, to the playoffs already, we knew they were a good team, but this was really, really impressive game coming through from Nvision. And as we look towards finals and whoever's going to be challenging them there, they look like a very scary team. They look like a team you have to be prepared to fight.
Yeah, I mean, completely. And I think it's not just the fact you have to fight them, you have to challenge them early. We have not seen that in this game. We saw MNM play a very slow-paced game. I think the icon I'd use to describe it is the tier Azir. I'd be crying after that one as well. I think ultimately they just played it way too slow and gave Nvision way too much room. And if you give this team room, you will lose. So whether it's Demise or Monster who end up challenging Nvision, I want to see them look to put pressure on them in the early game. I expect to see that from them, especially with the likes of PFI or No Name in the jungle. but this just was not enough to really even push Nvision. I don't feel like they even went up to 6th gear here. This was them just taking a leisurely stroll and doing what they needed to close the game out. So I still think there's more to see from Nvision, and hopefully we'll get to see that in the finals.
Yeah, Nvision, it was a very, very good series for them. They go 2-0. You got to be feeling it as good as possible coming out of that series, heading towards the finals. And that is Nvision as our first team booked into the finals. But we are going to cut to a break. And when we're back, we'll have Scoundrel standing by for an interview. So we will see you in a second.
Well, there we have it. Nvision 2-0, the first semi-final. We have to say goodbye to MNM at this stage, but Nvision have just gone from strength to strength. It has been such an interesting sort of ride, seeing them go from what felt like a coin flip team at times to a team that is, what, like 7 wins on the trot now? Something like that. It's very, very impressive. Maybe 8 actually with that win just there. So very, very impressive. Veteran, that game felt a lot more one-sided. And I know you had some criticisms of MNM. Where do we start just before we bring Effin in for an interview?
So the opening jungle parving, we talked a bit earlier about the options Trundle had, the options Lee had, and we talked about how we wanted to see Lee maybe do red into bot side camps and try to get a reset for Ezreal, and then maybe play for Trundle's bot side camps there, given that Trundle was very likely to go bot to top. Instead, you saw Lee Sin go bot to top to match the Trundle, and because of this, his camps were very vulnerable because Urgot was heavy pressuring on top side, Trundle was matching the path up there, and his camps were vulnerable to being invaded, and he definitely couldn't contest Scuttle Scuttle and River at 315. So he had to make his way back down towards bot side, waste a lot of time there, wasn't able to go for Krugs, to go for the gank on these Ziggs. And the moment he showed bot side there, Trundle had already done his Cant's top, already done Scuttle, already reset and was an item ahead of him. So now Trundle knows either Lee Sin stays and I win every 2v2, every 3v3, not just because of matchup, but because he's items behind, or he backs and I'm not going to see him for at least 45 seconds. So Trundle, no matter what, could help his mid laner get a reset off after the TP Fiesta on bot side, or help his bot side or contest what was eventually the forced Drake by MNM, which they could not hope to do the moment Lee Sin showed bot side. So off of that, they got significant advantages. You saw the lost chapters coming out of Syndra and Ziggs, and then after that, because they managed to escort their way through beautifully because of a better jungle matchup for them, the game was kind of theirs. I was really surprised, honestly, by how one-sided it was. But Nvision were actually very disciplined this game in a way that they weren't beforehand, with their composition in closing this out. They played to their ranges properly, and you know, it doesn't actually hurt to group Urgot here like it did to group Jax earlier. So I was very impressed.
Well, actually, we've got Ethan ready for an interview, so we can have a quick chat to him. So we'll bring him in. And first of all, Ethan, congratulations. That was a very convincing win. Nvision seemingly going from strength to strength. I know Veteran has got some specific questions for you, which I'm sure I'd love to get some answers on. But first of all, how has Nvision gone from what felt like a bit of a coin flip team to a team that now has 8 wins on the trial? What has been the biggest single change for your team to get to this position?
I think it's a big change with a lot of teams when you suddenly see like Demise as well go on these massive win streaks. It's when a team finds their style. They don't need to experiment. They know the champions they're comfortable with. They know the compositions and the win conditions that they practiced. So as soon as our team found our style, and like I was watching the pre-game analysis of Veteran, and he basically hit it on the head. We just take standard plays. We don't go for risk. We make 100% plays, and we try and just win through scaling a lot of the time. But we just thought a lot of our early season losses were due to trying comps we were comfortable with and this and that. I think we are the better team with better individual players in this league. So as long as we play to something we know what we're doing, we're probably going to come out ahead in 90% of games.
That's really interesting, actually, then, because in the first game, when you were playing the Jax, for example, it did feel to me like sometimes that discipline kind of like left you. For example, when you were contesting all of those mountain drakes with Jax, do you not think it might have been better for you guys to play more for Jax to get waves and get a good reset off and just trade like 2 of those mountain drakes away so that you can get more economy and get better spikes and just keep playing for lane? Or are you guys just really confident that you can win the fight against MNM, because as you say, you're very confident in the individual skill of your players?
Yeah, I think I agree with you that it was a lot better for us to get farm on Jax and get him scaled up, because I think we just got a bit greedy. We saw like, oh my god, guys, we can get 24 minutes soul, and then the game's in the bag at that point. Yeah. When you take a step back and you think, oh, we don't need to do that. We already have the 2 Drakes. We're going to win the game regardless if it gets to a certain time on the clock. So that was just a bit greedy. I also could put it down to the fact that when we normally play a split pusher, it's usually Camille. Like Jax isn't something I'd bust out all the time. And she can kind of flank and get those team fight engages, whereas Jax is a bit useless until 2.5, 3 items. But yeah, I think you're definitely right in calling us out for that. It was a bit greedy. We didn't need to do it, but we got the win in the end. So I'm happy.
Well, I have to ask you this then, because you're gonna either face Demise or Monster Rugby Gaming. Monster Rugby Gaming love to play heavily around bot side. Would you prefer to play against Monster Rugby Gaming, or would you prefer to face Demise with Rifty in top lane, with them playing heavy for top priority as well? Which would you prefer to face off against?
I think I'd rather just play against Munster, because we've played them in the tiebreakers, played them at the end of the season. Whereas Demise, they kind of went through this stylistic change mid-season, and we've only played them once since then. So they're more of an unknown factor.
Sure.
Whereas Munster, we kind of know what they're going to do, and we've beaten them the last 2 times we faced them. So I'd rather Munster, but I'm also not scared of Demise, because we did smack them in the tiebreakers. So either one is fine.
Do you know what, mate? I'm going to leave it on that bombshell. Ethan, thank you so much. Smacked them in the tiebreakers. And do you know what? We're going to get to see who they face after this, because we've got our next best of 3 coming your way. So we're going to go to a quick break. We're going to gear up for that Monster Rugby Gaming versus Demise semi-final. See you soon.